Hello and welcome to Weeb. Today I'm on start a new series What If Naruto Was Seduced by Erza. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Konohamaru, his two friends Udon and Moegi, and Naruto were playing ninja, essentially engaging in a game of tag. Everything was going great until the foray. Sakura came along, after all. Naruto, you are an idiot. I mean, why would a ninja play ninja? Then Konohamaru pushed Naruto and muttered, loudly, "Hey boss, who's this?" "Your girlfriend." "Oh come on Sakura, they're just kids, okay." Sakura's head developed a tick mark, her eyes turned into perfect white circles, and she growled while firmly grasping her hands. As he began to perspire, Naruto yelled, "Konohamaru, run! Now!" Konohamaru and Naruto sped down the street like two speeding bullets, not needing to be reminded twice. As soon as they arrived at an intersection, Konohamaru turned left and then right, and Naruto paused to look left and right. When they heard a scream, Sakura caught Naruto while he was still looking left and right and lifted him into the air with his arm cocked back to strike him. When they arrived at the scene, they saw a boy in his late teens who appeared to be in his 20s holding Konohamaru by his scarf. For his age, he was tall and strong. His black hair, which was long and spiky, was slicked back to reveal his forehead. He had 3 studs above his eyes, 2 on each side of his nose, 2 on his chin beneath his mouth, and 5 studs on each ear as earrings in place of eyebrows. His eyes were red with slitted black pupils. His canine teeth were also sharp. In addition, he had 4 studs on each arm, with some scarring on his right. He had a black tattoo of what appeared to be a fairy on his left shoulder. His canine teeth were also sharp. He wore beige pants tucked into his black studded boots, a shabby black sleeveless tunic with studded edges, and a studded belt around his waist. He had brown studded wristbands and gloves on his hands. A strange ornament that resembled wings protruded from his right shoulder of his tunic and was secured by a large stud. "Hey, didn't your parents teach you the words, 'I'm sorry'?" he said, sounding like an adult, as he met Konohamaru's eyes. He turned to see Sakura and Naruto with the other two. A tiny figure, only a few inches taller than Naruto, emerged from behind him and said, Gajeel, I think he did not mean to do it. You should let him go." Naruto took a step forward and opened his mouth. She sounded like a young adolescent. Sakura and Naruto observed the newcomer. She was small in stature and had fair skin. She had soft, dark brown eyes and long, dark blue hair in 2 pigtails held together with 2 attachments that resembled animal ears. Her canines were slightly longer and sharper than her partner's. She had an orange bow around her neck, beneath the shirt collar, and a red long-sleeved top with 2 buttons in the center. There was a small trim around the upturned cuffs on the sleeves and a small white cross pattern on the shoulders. She was wearing a black skirt with frills and a white line an inch from the edge. She wore black shinobi sandals and socks that reached her thighs. Although it was hidden, she had the same fairy tattoo on her right shoulder in the same shade of dark blue as her hair. Gajeel grimaced as she glanced at him. "Well, I should teach this little shit some manners." The sound of something hitting metal echoed through the air as he began to pull his arm back. When Gajeel turned to face the tree, he saw Sasuke Uchiha, throwing some stones. "You would be in a lot of trouble if you hurt the grandson of the Sandaime. I suggest you put him down before I have to fight you too. But you would have been ashes before you even had the chance to touch them." A fresh voice said. A boy who was slightly older than Sasuke was standing at the base of the branch above him when he turned around. The new guy was of average height and had a lean, muscular build. In addition to having black eyes and slightly tanned skin, he strangely had salmon pink hair that was a shade darker than Sakura's. He had a white scarf around his neck with white 1-inch tassels on either end that resembled scales. Because he was upside down, you could see a faded horizontal scar on the right side of his neck. On his right shoulder was a tattoo of a red fairy. He wore white knee-length pants with what appeared to be a skirt that split open at his belly button area, along with a black waistcoat vest that was gold-trimmed, sleeveless, and untucked, following gravity like his scarf. On his left wrist, he wore a thick black wristband. Any guy dressed like that must be crazy, Sasuke thought as he glanced at him. Gajeel put Konohamaru on his feet and released him while crossing his arms. Gajeel grinned and said, "Hey, we have been looking for you, Salamander." The person named Salamander gave him a look. Ash fell and flames erupted from his body. Then he was back beside Gajiel. Sorry to disappear on you too, Gajiel, Wendy. Well, since we found you, we know have to find Happy, Carla, and Lily. Have any ideas, Gajiel, Natsu? The girl, Wendy, said, placing one hand on his shoulder. Well, knowing Happy, he is probably looking for fish, Carla will be scolding him, and Lily will be looking at a weapons shop. Gajiel continued. Do you guys know where we can buy fish and a good weapon store? Natsu asked, turning to face Sasuke and facing the 6 onlookers. Sasuke gave Natsu a scowl. Naruto came forward and said, you go to the fish shop near the village gates. And for the weapon shop I say the store 3 blocks down to the right and 1 block up. Thank you for your information. We will be on our way now. Wendy replied. When Sakura rushed forward, they turned to depart. Wait, the 3 said, pausing and staring at her. You are obviously a ninja from another village, and those from outer villages are not allowed into another village without permission. Wendy glared at her sternly. Each of them produced a small passport with their picture and personal information, saying, we have permission. When they put them away, they kept walking. Hey, they exclaimed as they saw Sasuke standing before the others. The 3 burst out laughing. Where are your headbands? You need them to show what village you represent. Natsu got up and said, I am Sasuke Uchiha. It's not polite to ask others for their information without giving yours first. Natsu Dragneel, ninja of the village hidden in fairies. As for our headbands, he pointed to his shoulder tattoo, we have our village symbol tattooed onto our flesh, that was we never lose them, like you villages that do have them. The 3 then turned and walked away. Sasuke was unimpressed. Indeed, he was furious. Naturally, Sakura was furious that Natsu had treated her Sasuke badly. Stars shone in Naruto's eyes. Those 3, in his opinion, were even more awesome than the Yondaime Hokage himself. Team 7 walked to the small bridge to wait for Kakashi after their run-in with our favorite wizards. Though I'm not sure how that works, Sasuke was thinking and brooding. Those 3 didn't appear to be very strong, but Sasuke recalled Gajiel's reaction when the stone struck his hand. Gajiel appeared unfazed. Then there's the person with the pink hair. Sasuke repeatedly replayed the entire scene in his mind. Naruto also considered Natsu, Gajiel, and Wendy during this time. It was admiration, not hatred. I had the opportunity to inquire about how the person wearing the stylish scarf transformed into flames and then resurfaced close to his teammates. With his hands behind his back, Naruto sat on the bridge and gazed up at the azure sky. But Sakura was, to put it simply, angry for the most ridiculous reason. Sasuke was upped by someone. That bastard with the pink hair. With a belt around his ankles and both arms bound behind his back, Sasuke could beat him. Kakashi puffed into existence at this point and greeted them in the traditional manner. Yo, sorry I'm late. You see my girlfriend did not want me to leave her alone today. The 3 were so absorbed in their own thoughts that they failed to notice his greeting. With a sigh, Kakashi produced a paper bomb that was fastened to a kunai. The blade silently embedded itself in the ground after he leapt into the closest tree. Boom! Their souls were hovering out of their mouths as Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto snapped out of their reverie. While reading his Ika Ika book, Kakashi approached them, grabbed each soul, and thrust them back into their bodies without looking up. Sakura was brought back to the present and screamed at Kakashi for the explosion. I came and said hello, but none of you noticed. Is something bothering you 3? Actually, there is, and it isn't Naruto for once. Sasuke replied. Still reading, Kakashi grabbed Naruto's shirt by the back as he attempted to seize Sasuke while yelling that he would become Hokage and win everyone's respect. Sasuke dismissed him with a shrug. After striking Naruto in the head, Sakura turned to face Kakashi and said, Kakashi-sensei, you said yesterday you wanted to talk to us about something. Kakashi said, that's right. I almost forgot, and closed his book abruptly. He extracted 3 pieces of tan paper from his weapon pouch. These are entry papers to the Chunin exams. If you want to enter, just go to room 305 at the academy tomorrow. He then puffed himself to oblivion, leaving the 3 to reflect. This will be a great chance to test my skills against true opponents, said Sasuke with a sly smile. Naruto was grinning broadly. He was confident that he would create Chunin and demonstrate his superiority over Sasuke. Sakura, however, had her doubts. She was aware of her terrible genjutsu, ninjutsu, and taijutsu skills. She was simply very intelligent and skilled at controlling her chakras. Sakura leaned forward, her head lined with depression. Well, since we were chosen for this, we should probably train together. Improve our teamwork and whatnot, Naruto said, observing her dissatisfaction. They had no idea that Kakashi was observing them. He had grinned upon witnessing Naruto's development. The other two caught his attention. With a snort, Sasuke left them alone, saying, "If you trained with me you would just get in my way." Naruto scowled. He gave Sakura a look. "Sakura, would you like?" She also left him after saying, "No, I wouldn't like to train with you. You would get in the way." Feeling abandoned, Naruto made the decision to go for a walk. Kakashi made the decision to address Sakura and Sasuke about their treatment of Naruto. Somewhere, or exceeds one, Natsu, Wendy, and Gajeel were searching for their felines. They located the fish store by following Naruto's instructions. A blue cat with a green bag around his neck, concealing a green fairy tattoo on his back, stood in front of it. Natsu yelled, "Happy," and threw his arms out to embrace him. Happy turned, his eyes were the source of the drool on the corners of his mouth. He had the appearance of a predator pursuing its victim. "Natsu," he said in a slow, eerie voice. Natsu was terrified and came to a complete stop. "Ugh, what is it, little buddy?" Happy was about to respond when a white cat with a pink bow on her tail and a white and tan dress approached and struck him. "Stop it, Happy. We have to maintain our reputation," she said angrily. Wendy picked Carla up in her arms and said, "Hey Carla." Gajeel approached. "Carla, where is Lily? The last I saw him he was buying a bunch of kiwis and said he was going to look at weapons." With a nod, Gajeel moved in the direction of the weapon store that Naruto had informed them about. Natsu followed Gajeel, catching Happy by the green bag and carrying him. Wendy was right behind him. They went by a number of stores and shops. They are all selling different things. They saw something new everywhere they went. To prevent Natsu from consuming the barbecue fires, Gajeel restrained him. Panther Lily left with a large bag of kiwis after they reached the designated weapon shop. The Musica Blade, too, which he received from Grimoire Heart's attack and was the size of a regular sword, was strapped to Panther Lily's back while he was in his Daedalus form. With a sigh, Panther Lily shrank back to his smaller size. He grabbed a kiwi from his bag and looked around to see where he would go next. Gajeel had moved ahead of him when he put it in his mouth. He said, "Looks like you're having fun." Lily took a breath. "Indeed I am. The only things I did not like the people looking at me like a freak and the weapon merchants trying to buy my sword." "So, do you all remember where the exams take place tomorrow?" he asked, turning to face Natsu and the others. Natsu scratched his head in an attempt to recall. Wendy said, "Yes, it starts at room 305 at the Ninja Academy." "That's great, child. So did you three meet some people while we were separated?" replied Carla. Natsu said, "As a matter of fact, we did." The three superiors gave him a curious look and said, "Tell us more." "Well, there were three of them. 2 boys our age and a girl. She had bright pink hair and green eyes wearing a red dress or something. She was a complete bitch in my opinion." Happy said, "Okay, what about the other 2? With an angry expression and crossed arms, Gajeel remarked, "One of the 2 boys had raven-colored hair and onyx eyes. He had this high sense of superiority. He even said that he could beat us in a fight." Lily questioned, "And the third?" As best as she could, Wendy said, "He actually reminds me of Natsu. He had blonde spiky hair, cerulean blue eyes, and was wearing a terrible orange outfit." Natsu remained silent. He understood her meaning. They saw loneliness when they gazed into his eyes, which they had all experienced. 1. Would you like Happy, Carla, Panther Lily exceeds, or cats to be called? 2. There is a musical note on Panther Lily's sword. A blacksmith named Musica uses the same musical notation on the swords he makes in the classic anime The Rave Master, which I recommend to anyone who enjoys swords. For the Chunin exam, every visiting genin team was making their way on foot to the Konoha Ninja Academy. Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto passed a number of strangers as they made their way through the corridors. Alongside the others, Wendy and Gajeel were ahead of Natsu. An incident that occurred while he was asleep caused him to have a difficult night. Not wanting to draw attention to themselves or reveal their ability to fly, the 3 exceeds followed them. Carla was browsing the various shops and making notes about where she and Wendy would go shopping after the tests, while Happy was chowing down on a fish. Panther Lily was anxious to be in a new village and was observing the people. Alongside Naruto, Sakura and Naruto watched Sasuke battle a man named Rock Lee. Lee had round eyes and bushy eyebrows. He was dressed in a terrible green spandex suit, orange leg warmers, blue sandals, and a red cloth headband tied around his waist. Lee was running circles around Sasuke, who was struggling to keep up with him while using his Sharingan. After avoiding a few blows, Lee kicked Sasuke several times, sending him flying. He was twirl-kicked into the ground by Lee as he leapt over him. Naruto let out a whoop, delighted to witness Sasuke's struggle. How can Sasuke be losing? Sakura asked as she hammered Naruto's head into his neck. He is capable of defeating anyone who challenges him. Lee was getting ready to strike as he removed the bandages from his arms. Lee, a voice called out. A tortoise with a Konoha headband around his neck caught everyone's attention. Lee said, Guy-sensei. He hurried up and knelt down. All 7 members of Guy-sensei thought. A poof was heard. With the exception of the shape of his eyes and face, Lee appeared to be an adult standing on the tortoise. Lee, I told you that technique could only be used under certain conditions, Guy said passionately and elegantly. He leapt from the tortoise, which went home with a poof, and approached Lee. Lee, my young pupil, as punishment you shall run 200 laps around the village, and I will join you. Sakura took a step forward. The 2 green men gazed at her. The exam starts in 30 minutes. He and his team should get going to th. Oh, that'd right. Lee, 200 laps, times 10. Guy-sensei. They gave each other hugs. A beach and sunset emerged behind them. What was the origin of Genjutsu? Everyone thought. The 7th team made the decision to depart. Alongside Natsu. In the exam room, Natsu and his teammates were seated on the bench near the door. Genin from various villages filled the room. Natsu moaned. When in the hell is this exam going to start? If it doesn't start soon I am going to be extinguished. Hang on Natsu, we won't need to wait much longer, Wendy said, laughing at his comparison of himself to fire. Team 7 entered as soon as Wendy finished speaking. Sasuke, exclaimed a girl. A girl with long, pale blonde hair leapt over him and put her arms around his neck. Sakura shouted, Hey, let go of Sasuke, Ino pig. Ino gave her a look. Just because he is on your team, doesn't mean he likes you. Gajeel said, the same goes for you, ya blonde-haired bitch. Shikamaru and Choji gulped as they sat eating chips. Anger made Ino flush. Nobody referred to her as a bitch and survived. Gajeel shrugged his shoulder and turned his head away from her. He was punched in the head by Ino, whose rage had reached its peak. She cried out. Her fingers had been moved out of their positions. Someone call a medic ninja, exclaimed Ino to the group. Wendy hurried over and covered Ino's hand with hers. A light green glow appeared. Ino stopped sobbing. After a few minutes, Ino flexed her fingers. Wow, thank you, It's Wendy, Wendy Marvel. Well, thank you Wendy. Are you a med ninja? No, I the Sky Drive. Wendy. Wendy paused and turned to face Natsu. He was wearing a serious expression. We came here for the exam. Not to trade village secrets. Well, at least not now. Wendy sat next to Natsu, who grinned and apologized to her in a whisper after she nodded and bowed to Ino. Choji and Shikamaru approached Ino and examined her hand. Her bones had been moved, and they knew it. But now they were back where they belonged. After that, Team 8, Kiba, Akamaru, Hinata, and Shino, entered, with Kiba moving in Gajeel's direction. After Kiba and Gajeel exchanged a look, Gajeel asked, What do you want, bitch man? When Kiba yelled, What did you call me? Many foreign ninja turned to stare at him. Gajeel gave Natsu a hollow laugh when he said, I thought dogs had 10 times better hearing. But now I think they don't. Naruto and Shino were keeping Kiba back. Shino calmly remarked, Kiba, if you don't stop, I will unleash my bugs on you. Kiba sat down after ceasing to struggle. Akamaru leapt into his parka jacket. I apologize for my teammates, outburst, Hinata said as she stepped forward and bowed. Oh, it's okay. We get yelled at a lot by Erza-sensei. Natsu grinned once more before shuddering with Wendy and Gajeel. A boy said, You might want to keep it down from now on. His gray hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and he wore round glasses. He caught the attention of all 4 teams. Well, I'm only telling you this for you see, these guys don't like you being loud. They all glanced and noticed that everyone else was observing them. Well, You seem to know what you are doing. Is this your second time taking the exam? Wendy responded. No, this is my 7th time taking it. Oh, my name is Kabuto Yakushi. And you are Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame, the Inoshika Cho Trio's kids, and the 3 slayers of the Hidden Fairy Village right. Everyone was taken aback, with the exception of Team Natsu. How do you know our names? In Kabuto's hand, a stack of cards materialized. These are my ninja info cards. I have tabs on everyone here. So if there is someone you want extra info on, just ask. Rock Lee and Natsu Dragneel, said Sasuke. Natsu grinned. Kabuto pulled out Lee's card. Rock Lee, Team 10 member, Sensei is Might Guy, teammates are a Neji Hyuga and a girl named Ten. No ninjutsu or genjutsu skills whatsoever, all he has is taijutsu. He has been on 21 D ranked missions and 3 C ranked missions. He picked Natsu's card and put it back in the pile. Natsu Dragneel, team name unknown, Sensei is Erza Scarlet, teammates are a Gajeel Red Fox and a Wendy Marvel, skills in ninjutsu and genjutsu he has never used outside his village or mission, has completed 59 D ranked missions, 5 C ranked missions, 6 B ranked missions, 3 A ranked missions, and 1 S ranked missions. Parents of each person on Team Uncown, and are ninja of the village hidden in fairies. Well, that is all the dirt I have on them, Kabuto remarked, putting the card back. With the exception of Team Natsu, everyone had to pick up their jaws, including Sasuke. All right, you puss fags, I am Ibiki Morino, the proctor of the first exam, said a man wearing a dark trench coat and a bandana on his head as he entered. The proctor caught everyone's attention in room 305. With a snap of his fingers, Ibiki announced, everyone will sit in places away from their teammates. Chunin entered carrying stacks of papers. Ibiki smiled as the Chunin started handing out papers, and everyone sat down to watch him. The initial test is a written assessment. The 10th question will be asked 5 minutes prior to the end of the allotted hour, out of the 9 questions on the paper. Cheating will not be tolerated. The offender and their team will be sent out. With the exception of one blonde, all of our ninja knew they would pass even though it was a do or die situation. All right, the exam will begin when I say, go. Get ready and go. The room echoed with the sound of pencils beginning to write and paper turning over. 10 minutes in, Sasuke copied someone's test using his Sharingan. After 15 minutes, Ino copied Sakura using her mind-swapping 1 power. Shino had his tiniest insects fly around spying on other people's tests. Tenten assisted Lee by using a mirror and string device to view other people's tests. Neji used his Byakugan to view each person's paper and record their responses. While silently barking answers at Akamaru, Kiba made him sit on his head. Good boy, Kiba muttered to himself. Shikamaru used his shadow possession technique to assist Choji. Shikamaru was unaware that Gajeel had connected his shadow to Choji's, which had aided him in the test. 33 minutes had passed since the test began, and Naruto had nearly lost his mind because he had no idea what the answers were. When Hinata saw this, she muttered, "Piss, Naruto." After hearing her, Naruto nodded without turning to face her. Feeling dizzy, Hinata whispered, "If you want you can copy my answers down." Should I do this? I could get my team and her team disqualified. No, I should not, Naruto considered. Naruto felt a surge of warmth as soon as he thought these words, and he noticed fire on his feet. Take her offer. She really likes you, maybe even loves you, to the point where she would risk not becoming Chunin to help you. The flames formed before he could move. When Naruto turned to face Nastu, he saw flames slowly moving in the direction of his hand. Naruto nodded in agreement as he glanced at Hinata. Hinata grinned, glad to be of assistance to her beloved. Wendy was assisting Natsu, guiding his hand to write the right answers with her sky magic. Nearly half of the competition had already been eliminated by this point. Naruto completed his paper, thanked Hinata, and promised to pay her back. All she had to do was ask. The test started 45 minutes ago, and just over 1/3 of what had started was still there. Naruto turned to face Natsu, who had his head resting on the desk with his eyes half closed. When Natsu looked up and saw Naruto staring at him, he grinned and smiled. Naruto's head turned quickly to the front. After 5 minutes. All right, it is now time for the 10th and final question. Ibiki said. Everyone was listening carefully so they wouldn't miss anything crucial. He grinned broadly and said, but there is something you should know. If you fail this question, you shall never be able to take part in the Chunin exams ever again. What? You are not serious? With the exception of the Dragon Slayers, everyone yelled. I am, indeed. However, those who wish to quit now can retake the test in 6 months. A number of teams left, reducing the number of teams left by half, and some teams were still debating whether or not to continue. You shouldn't lie to people who can't tell the difference between a bluff and the truth, said Natsu, getting to his feet. Everyone gazed, and Ibiki was stunned but kept it to herself. And why do you believe I'm lying? Natsu noted, after you said that, your heart began to beat more quickly. Nobody had ever said that to Ibiki in his life, and his mouth fell open. Ibiki regained his composure and went on. So, will everyone be staying? Every single head nodded in agreement. Okay, then let me be the one to say congratulations. You all passed the first exam. And now. Crash. A tiny purple ball rolled in and burst through the broken window. A sign that read, Introducing the second proctor of the Chunin exams, Anko Mitarashi, appeared when the dust settled. A woman with purple hair styled like an upside-down pineapple stood in the middle of the sign. She was dressed in a full-body mesh suit, an orange miniskirt, a tan trench coat, and a headband. Her eyes were faded purple or tan. Iniki remarked, Anko, you're early again. He got no attention from Anko. She was occupied with the contestant count. With the most ominous smile anyone has ever seen, she said, 123. You left me with 41 teams, but less than half will be cut off after my exam. Gajil, Wendy, and Natsu swallowed. They all thought, I hope this lady, chick crazy-looking bitch is not like Erza-sensei. All right, everyone, meet me outside Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death, Anko said after taking a quick look at everyone. Indeed, she is equally as insane as Erza-sensei. 1. Would you prefer that I have the jutsus in English or Japanese? 2. Natsu had used his fingers to release his flames. Watch the scenes in episodes 174 or 175 where he and Gajil battle Rogue and Sting. Speaking of them, who would you like to see in the third round? Erza, the Sting, A. Rogue, Lecter, Frosh, Lucy and her soul, Makarov, Master, Romeo, the Thunder League and Laxus, Gray, Juvia, Shadow Gear for Levi and the team. And so forth and so forth. Send me a review if you would like some to be added, and I'll take a look. It's not a vote. Since there is a considerable amount of time before the final rounds, there is no time limit. Anko led all of the teams to Training Ground 44. Naruto remained near Hinata, who was blushing profusely. When Natsu noticed this, she grinned. As he gazed up at the sky, a picture of Lucy materialized. His smile got bigger. Everyone noticed old signs covered in moss when Anko stopped in front of an old fence. With the same savage grin, she said, all right everyone, this is the Forest of Death. Naruto uttered the words, I bet she is exaggerating, loudly. Before he knew it, Anko had thrown a kunai, cutting his cheek an inch long after making a faint whistle sound. Behind him, Anko held a kunai at his throat. She licked his wound, tasting his blood, and remarked, you know, it's always the arrogant and dumb who die first in there. Naruto felt frightened. Natsu and his group were also, Natsu more so than the others. A grass ninja, holding the previous kunai in her long tongue, crept up behind Anko. Anko swung at her. With a very raspy voice, the grass ninja backed up and said, I'm sorry. You dropped this earlier and the sight of battle makes me, daring. She dropped the kunai in Anko's hand with her tongue. Thanks grass ninja, but next time, be careful because you might end up dead. The ninja approached her team after bowing. Natsu gave the other a look. Each of them gave a nod. She has a snake-like scent, they all thought. After releasing Naruto, Anko carried on. She held up 2 scrolls, one white and one faded brown, one with the words, Heaven, and the other, Earth. All right, the next part of the exam is a 5-day survival test. Each team will be given a scroll, she said. Half of you will get the Earth scroll while the other half gets the Heaven scroll. You must get the opposite scroll and make it to the tower in the center of the forest with both of them. And there are 3 ways to be disqualified. 1. Lose your scroll. 2. One of your teammates dies. And 3. You open your scroll. Someone at random said, what happens if we open the scroll? Anko's smile widened. You will find out if you do open it. And now we will hand out these forms. By signing them, You are saying we are not responsible to what happens to you during the 5 days you were in there. Each person signed their paper after lining up. Natsu, was said when Natsu and his group handed in theirs and were given an earth scroll. When everyone looked up, Happy, Carla, and Lily were flying in the direction of Wendy, Gajiel, and Natsu. Happy leapt into Natsu's arms as they landed directly in front of them and yelled, "Natsu! Why didn't you tell me you're leaving for 5 days?" Tears streamed out of his eyes like waterfalls at this. "Wendy, did you remember to tell us about the second exam?" Carla asked as she approached Wendy. No. Then why didn't you find us before you left?" "We had to leave the room right after the first exam." Carla refused to pay attention. Lily's paw was moving toward the handle of his sword as he glanced at everyone. Gajiel grinned. Suddenly, Anko was holding all 3 exceeds and glancing at them. Happy was trembling uncontrollably because Lily reminded him of Erza, and Carla was yelling about how they should be freed. After glancing at them, Anko gave them a hug while yelling how adorable they were. Anko was behaving like Miliana, and Natsu and Wendy were perspiring. Gajiel merely chuckled. Everyone else wanted to see them for themselves, with the exception of one particular team from Grass and the Sound. With a trout in his hand, ready to defend himself if necessary, Happy was in a panic. When Lily had had enough, he pulled out his sword and began to swing. He did not want to reveal a village secret, so he remained in his diminutive form. Carla flew over to Natsu, out of everyone's reach. "Natsu, could you help Happy and Lily, and stop these people?" It was unnecessary to ask Natsu twice. "Fire Dragon Roar," he thought as he took a breath and placed both hands in front of his mouth. Everyone, with the exception of Happy, ducked as a massive ball of fire erupted from his hands. He yelled, "All right, that's enough. Let's get on with the exam." After the flames subsided, he approached Happy and took him in his arms. After apologizing, he gave him to Carla and Lily. Sasuke's gaze was fixed on Natsu. That was jutsu in the fire style, similar to fireball jutsu, but not the same. "After this is over, I will make him tell me his secrets, and then I will use it to kill Itachi," he said with a grimace. The documents were signed and submitted once everyone had calmed down. "All right, everyone, go to a gate and when they open you may enter and then survive," Anko said, clearing her throat. The Chunin, Anko, and the 3 exceeds were left behind as all the teams ran into the dense trees after opening the gate. The 4th day morning. There are 24 hours left. 3 days have passed. Naruto was only wearing his headband and underwear. On the 2nd day, he and several clones discovered a small stream and were attempting to catch some fish. Following a series of battles, Naruto and the clone platoon managed to capture a few fish, which Sasuke cooked using the fire style. In the interim, Natsu told Wendy and Gajiel, "Aw man. Why can't there be any fire? I am going to die from hunger." "Get over it, Salamander. You forget, I need iron. Wendy is the only one who doesn't need to worry about dying from hunger." Gajiel yelled. Natsu answered, "But you can also eat shadows, can't you?" Above Gajiel's head, a light bulb appeared. Before long, shadows were moving into his stomach and down his throat. Gajiel turned to Natsu and said, "If I can eat shadows, can you eat lightning?" "They did not taste good, but I'm full." "Maybe. Never tried. If one of my opponents use lightning, I'll try." "Well, we should not stay here very much longer," Wendy replied. 3 waterfall ninja with bamboo umbrellas materialized as soon as she finished speaking. In the interim, keeping an eye out for other teams, Team 7 strolled through the pitch-black forest. They wandered around without seeing anyone. The sun has set. Team 7 still hasn't received a heaven scroll as the late evening sun sets. When they paused to rest, Naruto exclaimed, "Guys, I got to go," as he moved farther into the forest. Sakura was both angry and joyful at the same time. She was by herself with her Sasuke. "Sasuke," she said as she drew nearer to him. Sakura stopped kissing him when they heard a rustling sound, and Sasuke turned to see her. They were in a clearing when Naruto staggered in. With a silly smile, he remarked, "Wow, that was quick, even for me." Sasuke attacked Naruto right away. "What the hell, Sasuke? Why are you attacking Naruto?" replied Sakura. "This person isn't Naruto. Naruto is right-handed, not left-handed." Naruto burst out laughing. Very observant. In Naruto's place, a puff of smoke revealed a rain ninja wearing a face mask. "But no, I will take the pleasure of killing you too." Alongside Naruto, Naruto yelled, "How the hell did this happen?" A giant snake attacked Naruto while he was going about his business. The snake pursued him and eventually swallowed him. Naruto is now, in a sense, inside the beast's belly. He pulled out a rice ball, which evaporated when a piece of slime came into contact with it. Well, if I'm going to die, I will die full. Wait, that's it. He made a sign of a cross. As the snake's stomach began to swell, it exploded, exposing a battalion of Narutos as it slithered through the forest. The snake swung back and forth before it died and ceased to move. After taking a few deep breaths and destroying his clones, Naruto left to locate his team. Alongside Hinata and her group, having just received the second scroll, Shino, Hinata, Hiba, and Akamaru were making their way to the tower in the middle of the forest. Hiba took a whiff of the air. "Wait," he exclaimed. Hinata and Shino paused and turned to face him. After taking another sniff, he declared, "I smell blood, and lots of it." As they took off, they followed Kiba's nose. Natsu and his group were soon located by Team 8 along with the Waterfall Ninja team. The leader spun his umbrella while firing Senbon needles at two members who were unconscious and covered in blood. Gajeel moved ahead of the assault. With lightning speed, he snatched up all the needles and placed them in his pocket. Whimpering, Akamaru drew nearer to Kibas's chest. In a whisper, Hinata asked, "Is he okay?" "Yes, he's fine, but the Ninken hounds from my clan can smell chakra. And according to Akamaru, they all have strong chakra." With a nod, Shino extended his hand, causing a few tiny insects to fly out and land on the three fairy ninja. Hinata remained silent. She knew what this meant, but she was satisfied. Natsu and Gajeel punched the living daylights out of him, and Wendy stayed behind. He collapsed, unconscious. Scenting them, Natsu turned to face them and said, "You three can come out. We already have both scrolls." Team 8 emerged from their hiding place gradually. "Hey, I know you," Natsu said, gesturing to Hinata. Hinata was as perplexed as a newborn. "Yeah, you're the girl who helped the stupid blonde kid with the whisker marks during the first exam." Natsu went on. She questioned, "How do you know that?" Natsu grinned broadly and said, "If I hadn't given him the motivation to accept your assistance, he wouldn't have." Gajeel took a step forward. "Did you three see our fight with the Waterfall Ninja?" "No, we were passing by, when Kiba smelt blood. We came to see what had happened and saw the last of them shoot the needles." Shino stated clearly. "I like this guy," Gajeel grinned. "Straight to the point at all times." Hinata turned to face Wendy, who gave her a kind smile. Wendy approached Hinata and extended her hand. Hinata followed suit slowly. As a result, they developed a friendship that was not yet fully realized. Hiba gave Gajeel a fierce look. The "bitch man" remark was still fresh in his mind. His knuckles cracked. This caught Natsu's attention. Natsu punched his fist into his hand and declared, "If you want to fight someone, you can fight me." As soon as Wendy and Hinata attempted to break up the argument, both teams made their way to the tower. In the meantime, Team 7, Sakura and Sasuke were panting heavily. Another ninja attempted to attack them shortly after they had vanquished the rain ninja. However, it was the same grass ninja from a few days prior this time. Sasuke was easily intimidated by her and stabbed himself in the leg to get away. Nin smirked as she repeatedly licked her lips with her tongue. Sakura stood there and watched as Sasuke, guided by the wire, used his fire style and bound the grass Nin with it. Nin looked up at the grass as the flames went out. Her face appeared to be melting after being burned off. The grass slacked, and Nin leapt out of her captivity to strike Sasuke, who was paralyzed as he stood there. He flew down several branches after the punch landed and landed on a huge oak branch. My, you are tough." When Sasuke looked up, he saw Nin's grass emerge from the tree like water. In response, Sasuke said, "Okay, if I give you scroll, you'll leave us alone." He then got up and took out the earth scroll. The Nin gave a nod. As Sasuke reached to toss the scroll to her, Naruto materialized beside him, his back to Sasuke and his hand on Sasuke's wrist. Terrified, Sasuke yelled, "Naruto, what are you doing?" Without glancing at Sasuke, Naruto took the scroll, placed it in his pouch, and gave him a backhand to the face. "You aren't Sasuke. What are you talking about? Of course I am the real Sas." "No you aren't." Naruto turned, fire blazing in his eyes. "The Sasuke I know would never give up no matter what." Naruto turned to grass. "I'm naming the Orochimaru's disguise, Grass, because I'm sick of writing, Grass Ninja. Sakura arrived at Naruto's side, but Sasuke ignored her and continued to watch him. Are you the one who sent the giant snake after me? Grass licked her lips and said, yes, I sent it to eat you. But it failed. Grass revealed a black spiral tattoo when she rolled up her right sleeve. Grass spread it on the tattoo after biting her thumb. Then she gestured with her hands. Summoning jutsu, Grass said, slamming her hand into the ground. A huge cloud materialized. After it vanished, Grass was on the head of another enormous snake. The snake made a lunge. Sakura jumped with Naruto after grabbing Sasuke. Some higher branches were where they landed. Sasuke wriggled free of Sakura's hold as they touched down. The serpent reappeared and lunged once more. Sakura is seized by Sasuke and thrown to Naruto, who was perched on a higher branch. When Sasuke turned, the snake was 15 feet away and rapidly approaching. He shut his eyes and waited to be struck. Sasuke's eyes opened and he saw Naruto. Naruto's right hand was gripping the scales, while his left was holding a kunai that had pierced the snake's mouth. Hey, Naruto said in a deeper voice, you're not hurt, are you? Naruto raises his head, scaredy cat, his pupils are slits, and his eyes are blood red. After giving Naruto a quick glance, Sasuke used his Sharingan. Naruto was emitting corrosive orange chakra, which Sasuke noticed. After pulling out the kunai, Naruto turned and punched the snake, causing it to fly. As it puffed out of existence, Grass leapt off. As she sidestepped Naruto's torrent of blows, she licked her lips. As she kept dodging, Grass thought, this kid must be the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. I could lose if we go on. Let's take care of that. Grass used her fingers as a channel for chakra. On the tips of her fingers, blue-purple flames emerged. Grass struck Naruto in the stomach with a three-pronged seal, as he leapt at her. Naruto felt his chakra leave him the moment she took her hand off his stomach. He landed and fell to the ground. Grass gasped. Her pasty face was zipped by a kunai. She turned to see Sasuke holding a kunai in his right hand. Grass chuckled. Sasuke managed to ask, what's so funny? What I find funny is that you stand there, bravely, but you're shaking like a child. She stopped at the double half ram sign after running through a few hand signals. Sasuke screamed out. He looked over and saw Grass biting him with his head at his neck. He noticed that her neck was stretched when he turned to face her again. Grass retreated and took a step back. Sasuke clutched the spot where she had bitten him. On his neck, 3 black tomo emerged. He grunted. What did you do? Just a farewell gift. Until next time, Sasuke. At this point, Sasuke fell and Grass sank into the tree branch. Sakura just awoke and witnessed Sasuke's fall. She leapt toward Naruto and him. Before she moved them, she made sure they were still alive. Alongside Natsu, Natsu's group and teammate arrived at the tower. It appeared deserted and stood 3 stories tall. The 2 groups dispersed and went through 2 separate doors. Natsu, Wendy, and Gajil entered and noticed a white poster with text on it. It stated, if the gates of heaven and earth both open, hell's door will then open. Wendy pulled out the scrolls. Natsu and Gajil were still considering the implications. Wendy said, guys, we have to open them. Natsu remarked, but that crazy snake lady told us not to. Yeah, but that was when we were in the forest, dumbass. Gajil replied. You want to fight? Poof. Enough you two. Their skulls were seized by 2 armored hands, which then slammed them together. Erza sensei. They yelled out. They turned to see Erza Scarlet, their sensei, there. She had her hair down and was wearing her specially made Heart Cruise armor. Well, at least you haven't forgotten me. Natsu was so sweaty that all he could say was, I. 1. The Legend of Zelda series is something I adore. This is from the 2064 game Laws Majora's Mask, which will be remade for the 3DS in March 2015. As though his life depended on it, Natsu was forcing food into his mouth. Erza punched him in the head and said, so disgusting. Keep this up and you will choke. In fact, Natsu began to choke. Gajil struck Natsu in the back as he ran behind him while his arm changed into an iron club. Natsu let out a gasp, releasing tiny bits of food. Now his back was misaligned. The only thing Erza and Gajil said was, Wendy, fix his back. The 3 Exceeds had met Team Natsu a few hours earlier, and you guessed it, they were having dinner in a private room inside the tower. Alongside Team 8, Team 8 and their sensei were in a separate room. Although Kurenai was pleased that her team passed the second test, she saw a problem. Kiba had never been quieter. Shino. Was Shino? Hinata appeared more assured. She was clearly grinning. Having a new friend made her happy. Natsu team. Erza surveyed her pupils. Natsu was being boisterous as usual with Happy, but he appeared to be reflecting and had a faraway expression on his face. As he munched on the Senbon needles, Gajil was discussing the second exam with Lily. Wendy had a radiant smile on her face. She had made a new friend who, like her, disliked fighting but, when pushed to the limit, could kick a real ass. Alongside Naruto, Sakura was worn out. She knelt before the tree that encased Naruto and Sasuke. Sakura gasped. A few minutes ago, she threw a kunai at a shy rabbit. Sakura was concerned about herself as well as her teammates. She was aware of her shortcomings in ninjutsu and taijutsu. As soon as she closed her eyes, she fainted. Group 10. On their way to the tower, Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino were leaping through the trees. Since the Uchiha is out cold, and the stupid blonde's out, the pink-haired girl is going to be easy picking, just like her teammates. They halted. Shikamaru noticed some sound ninja. Participants took part in the exams. Team 10 trailed behind the 3 as they proceeded. Group 7. A loud noise vibrated through the trees, waking Sakura abruptly. When she saw 3 sound nin, she leapt to her feet. The third was a girl, and the other 2 were boys. Except for one eye, one of the men's faces was covered in bandages. He was wearing a gray camouflage shirt and had what appeared to be straw on his back. The second was dressed in gray trousers, a pale yellow shirt, a scarf, and bandages on his arms. The girl wore a gray camo shirt, gray pants, a scarf, and long black hair. Every one of them had their headbands on. In a deep, gravelly voice, the mummy-looking one said, "So, Pinky woke up. All well. We can kill her and her teammates and take their scroll. Dosu, we can take our time. Remember, Lord Orochimaru wanted us to fight the Uchiha, not kill him in his sleep like cowards." The other individual replied. "Shut up, you two. We need to deal with Pinky here before we do that." The child replied. "Don't tell me what to do, Kin. And Zaku, keep an eye out for other teams." Dosu replied. Sakura got to her feet, holding a kunai. Kin chuckled. "So Pinky wants to fight. So be it." Sakura was struck by a tremendous gust of wind. She turns to see Zaku pointing at her with his outstretched hands. Sakura hurled the kunai in his direction. Zaku ran behind her, ducked, and hit her. Group 10. Ino became enraged as they observed. How can they enjoy causing harm to someone? Shikamaru saw the tension in her body. Alongside Sakura, Sakura was trying to keep her team safe. She repeatedly employed the substitution jutsu. Kin grabbed her pink hair from behind. "You became a ninja, but you don't practice your skills. I'll bet you spend more time doing your hair." Sakura broke down in tears. She took out a kunai and cut Kin's wrist while slashing her hair. Sakura charged after drawing her kunai. Zaku threw kunai at her after she leapt at him. She persisted, biting down hard on his arm and punching him. "What the hell, you stupid bitch, get off me." Zaku punched her in the head and yelled. Sakura moaned with every blow, and she would not release her grip. Group 10. That was all. Choji attacked Dosu and Kin using his human boulder jutsu. Sakura was forced to release her grip when Zaku stood up and punched her in the stomach. Choji was stopped when he thrust his hand forward and air shot out of it. Dosu reached up to reveal a metal device on his right sleeve, but he stopped himself before flicking it. "What? Why am I unable to move? Shadow possession complete." Dosu turned to see Shikamaru. "Kin," he yells at her, "get rid of him right away." Kin just drew a kunai and pressed it to her throat. "If you want your teammate to live, I suggest you leave and leave your scroll." Dosu was shocked to see Inasa's body. Blood spurted from Kin's and Ino's mouths as Zaku, who had escaped Choji, ran up and struck Kin. Thus, her own body suffers whatever happens to the one she is in possession of. Choji regrouped with his team, Ino released the jutsu, and Dosu was followed by waking Zaku and Kin. Sakura attacked at that point, wounding Dosu multiple times, and he kicked her in the back in retaliation. The tiny battlefield was then engulfed in a massive wave of darkness. From the tree trunk, Sasuke appeared. He had odd markings on the left side of his face, neck, arm, and leg, and his Sharingan was activated. He remarked icily, "Sakura, who did this to you?" Sakura felt afraid. Sasuke grinned. He disappeared and reappeared behind Dosu, whereupon Sasuke seized him, leapt to his feet, and slammed him headlong into the ground. Kin came next. She was thrown against a tree by Sasuke after he caught her punch. "You bastard!" Zaku shouted, and Sasuke disappeared once more. Grabbing Zaku by both arms, Sasuke withdrew, placing one foot on his back. "You appear to be quite proud of your arms." With a psychopath's grin, he said, "How about I take them off?" As his arms were being wrenched from their sockets, Zaku let out a scream. Sasuke released Zaku's arms and covered his ears as a sound reverberated through the trees. After picking up his teammates, Dosu put the heaven scroll down and vanished. Sasuke remained there, the marks fading into the mark before she collapsed. Sakura saw the curse mark and decided to tell Kakashi about it. She was crying when she caught him. When Naruto woke up, he was first hungry and then felt weaker in terms of chakras. He witnessed Sakura sobbing over Sasuke's lifeless body. "She wouldn't give 3 flying fucks if I died if I were in his possession," Naruto thought. "I can at least rely on Hinata for solace." At that moment, Naruto saw Choji eating some chips. "Give me some chips now, Choji," he screamed, frightening everyone. "Naruto, keep quiet," Ino remarked angrily. "Sasuke is trying to rest, and with you being loud, he might not get it." With a sneer, Naruto walked over to the scroll, picked it up, and put it in his pouch. Naruto was upset because he didn't understand why he was treated differently by everyone. Blood dripped from his palm as he clenched his hand. Together, the two teams made their way to the tower after an hour. Naruto was extremely irritated by Sakura and Ino's concern for Sasuke. All Naruto wanted was to be with Hinata, so he stayed in the very back of the group, slipped away without them noticing, and went ahead of them on a different and safer route, leaving a shadow clone in his place. Natsu. On the tower's balcony, Natsu and his group were keeping an eye out for other teams. Smelling a familiar scent, Natsu turned to watch Naruto dash toward the tower. Natsu leapt off and confronted Naruto. "What on earth is preventing you from being with your team?" Natsu inquired. Naruto answered, "They are down the pathway and about 64 feet away." He thought at once, "Wait, how do I know that?" Punch. Oh, when a huge red lump appeared, Naruto held his head and looked up to see Erza steaming from her fist. "You never desert your team or leave them. You could assist them if they get into trouble." "Yes, exactly. They didn't need me, just like every other time." Erza disliked being talked back to, so Natsu swallowed. Erza grinned. "All right, then disprove them. I can tell you have a lot of power and are capable of doing everything in your power to keep those you care about safe." Naruto gazed at her, her surroundings illuminated by stars. "Thank you, Naruto." Sakura suddenly appeared and started beating Naruto. Erza intervened and took Sakura by the arm. "What the devil are you doing to him?" Knowing Sasuke was hurt, he left us behind. "It doesn't matter anyway, because those two were being watched by another team," Erza said, glancing at Naruto. "Whether I was with them or not never really mattered to anyone." Naruto just walked past everyone and into the tower, a sad expression on his face. "Hey, who is the pink-haired chick?" Natsu asked as she entered with him. "And why did you allow her to strike you in that manner?" "I had a thing for her once. But because Sasuke is the final Uchiha, she is fixated on him." "So, why did you allow her to strike you?" Naruto gave him a look. "I have my justifications. However, I'm worn out. I must take a nap." He then proceeded to enter the tower. Iruka was waiting for Naruto and the others when they entered the tower. "Welcome and congratulations for making it past the second round." Iruka was one of the few people who had shown him kindness when he was younger, and Naruto grinned. Sakura and Sasuke just nodded. Team 7 came in and saw a number of other teams. Along with Kabuto's team and the previous Sound Ninja, Teams 7, 8, 9, and 10 had made it. There were members of Team Natsu, their exceeds, and their sensei. Gajeel stood there, bored, while Wendy spoke to Hinata. Natsu was relieved to be able to resume the exam at last. Sasuke was smiling, eager to get started. The Hokage appeared after Team 7 had assembled with the others. "Hello everyone, I'm happy to hear that you passed the second test. However, there are too many people, so there will be an elimination round." As he spoke, a huge screen materialized, and a man wearing a typical Chunin flak jacket and shinobi pants with a sickly expression on his face emerged. "My name is Hayate Gecko. 2 of us will be chosen to fight. Those who want to drop out, however, are free to do so before I continue. Your teammates won't suffer if you depart. Kabuto and several others left. All right, the guidelines are easy. Either your opponent gives up or you knock them out. Killing your opponent is not against the law, but it is discouraged. Everyone gave a nod. All right, we'll see who goes first. Names on the screen rotated quickly, stopping at the names of Sasuke's and Yoroi Akato, a member of the Kabuto's team. While the others went up onto the balconies with their sensei, the aforementioned ninja remained where they were. Sasuke turned to face Yoroi, who had a blue mask covering his face and circular shades on. They all nodded when Hayate asked if they were ready. And, start. Sasuke swiftly grabbed Yoroi's hand, pulled him over his shoulder, and slammed him into the ground after Yoroi vanished and slugged him in the back. Orochimaru observed as the Jonin instructor went through this process. With his hands glowing with chakra, Yoroi managed to break his grip and punch Sasuke in the chest, causing him to feel weak. Sasuke realized that Yoroi was stealing his chakra. Then Yoroi was launched into the air, and Sasuke rushed forward and disappeared. Sasuke materialized behind him, and just as he was about to strike, his curse mark became active. Orochimaru's eyes widened. Sasuke thought, no, I won't let this thing take over. The curse mark returned. Sasuke spun around and repeatedly kicked Yoroi in the stomach with his axe. The moment they hit the ground, he yelled, Lion's Barrage. Yoroi wasn't there. Hayate said, winner, Sasuke Uchiha. The Shunshined left after Kakashi went down to grab Sasuke. Natsu wondered why he did, but it didn't matter. Other names were already appearing on the screen. Zaku Abumi vs. Shino Aburame. The two took a step back and faced each other. Shino noticed that Zaku had one arm in a sling and waited. Are you two prepared? Hayate inquired. They both gave a nod. And, start. Zaku was surrounded by hundreds upon hundreds of insects as Shino thrust his arms forward. I advise you to give up. You can only protect yourself with one arm, Shino remarked coolly. Zaku clenched his teeth, grinned, thrust both arms, and yelled, Joke's on you, loser. Shino stood motionless as gusts of wind rushed towards him. The room reverberated with the sound of screams and ruptures. There were huge holes in Zakus's arms, and tiny insects flew out and headed for their master. Hayate declared, winner, Shino Aburame. Zaku was taken to the medical room by a medical team. In the interim, after sealing Sasuke's curse mark, Kakashi turned to face Orochimaru, who had just passed out. Well, it seems it will be a while until he seeks me out for power. After revealing his Sharingan, Kakashi used his lightning blade. After turning and leaving, Orochimaru declared, Sasuke will be mine soon enough. Kakashi inhaled deeply. As before, I was unable to attack him. Returning to the others, Shino took a seat again and watched the next match on the screen. Masumi Tsurugi vs. Gajeel Red Fox. Gajeel cracked his knuckles and grinned. They both stepped into the ring. Masumi wore a mask and glasses, just like Yoroi. Are you prepared? Nods. And, start. Masumi made a number of hand gestures before encircling Gajeel with his body. Similar to my jutsu, I can become more flexible and dislocate my bones. Gajeel responds, it's not enough to beat me. All right, then, after I break your neck, let's see if you can retract that. Masumi's hold tightened, protecting Gajeel's neck. What? Why am I unable to do it? Gajeel remained silent. He merely leaned his head forward and struck Masumi's in the face with his back, shattering his nose and severing several teeth. Your head cannot be dislocated, but your bones might. After hurling Masumi's lifeless body off of him, Gajeel remarked, I'm not called Ironhead and Black Steel for nothing. Winner. Gajeel Red Fox. Erza grinned. He didn't have to. Gajeel had fought a battle without showing his strength. Gajeel sat with his team and looked at the screen as he watched his opponent be carried off. Ino Yamanaka vs. Sakura Haruno. Each of the aforementioned kunoichi entered the ring with the intention of winning. Are you two prepared? Nods. And, start. The two girls charged at one another and persisted in their relentless assault. Sakura struck Ino in the head, and Ino struck Sakura in the shoulder. They were both exhausted and leapt apart, panting. They recalled their meeting and the breakdown of their friendship. Ino cuts her ponytail and pulls a kunai. The hair spread all over the floor after Ino threw it. Because it was driven by Ino's chakra, Sakura becomes entangled in the hair. When Ino attempted to persuade Sakura to give up using her mind transfer jutsu, inner Sakura pushed her away. The match was declared a draw after both of them fainted. Since Sakura and Ino were not seriously hurt, they were both permitted to remain. When they awoke, Tenten was entering the ring. The screen caught their attention. Ten versus Wendy Marvel. Wendy approached Tenten with trepidation. Hayate gave them both a look. She doesn't seem like a fighter, and it's likely that she's not used to it. All right, you two ready? Said Hayate after clearing his throat. They both gave a nod. And, start. Wendy readied herself and assumed her fighting stance as Tenten leapt back and produced 2 scrolls. Make one up yourself. Both scrolls were unrolled by Tenten, and numerous weapons emerged from tiny container seals. Sky Dragon Roar, exclaimed Wendy, pulling her head back. Tenten's weapons were hurled to the ground as a whirlpool erupted from her mouth. Stands. How did a little girl use a wind release without weaving hand signs or channeling her chakra? Was the question that was on everyone's mind, with the exception of Wendy's teammates. Wendy. The weapons vanished and were flying through the air again, and Wendy was staring at Tenten, waiting for her next move. Tenten was certain Wendy must have had time to launch an attack. Sky Dragon Wing Attack. Wind deflected the weapons and struck Tenten after Wendy swung both arms. Tenten slammed into the wall and looked up to see Wendy's eyes, which had changed from fear to strength and confidence. Getting up, Tenten declared, I give up. Despite Erza's strict instructions not to display their powers unless absolutely necessary, Wendy signed in relief, relieved that she would no longer have to do so, and shivered. Cough. Winner. Wendy Marvel. Wendy smiled as she approached Tenten and held out her hand. That match was pleasant. You did a fantastic job handling weapons. You should meet my sensei after this. She has a strong interest in weapons. Startled, Tenten shook her hand and consented to see her teacher with Wendy. Natsu was thrilled that Wendy and Gajeel had both prevailed in their bouts, but he was eager to face his opponent. Tenten and Wendy went back to their teams, and Erza gave Wendy a quick pat on the head when she got there. Happy, who was flying alongside Carla and Lily to gain a better view, said, Hey, good fight Wendy. Yes, that girl is really skilled in weapons, but lacks hand-to-hand combat skills. Lily replied. Carla merely grinned. Natsu agreed with Wendy and looked at the screen when Gajeel stated that she really didn't need to use her power, but Wendy countered that it was just a habit of hers. Everyone was tense as the names on the screen whirled. Natsu wanted to fight badly and was ready to fight. Twice, he came dangerously close to falling off the railing. There were 2 names. Kin Y Suchi versus Shikamaru Nara. Shikamaru moaned as he descended the stairs, what a drag. As she descended, Kin grinned. After they had both made their way to the center, Hayate took over. Ready. With a lazy tone, Shikamaru remarked, It's a drag, but yeah, I'm ready. Kin simply gave a head nod. And, begin. Kin leapt back and snatched up some senbon with small bells on the ends. Gajeel's mouth watered at the sight of them. A hand shadow materialized as Shikamaru prepared his shadow possession jutsu. All of the senbon was deflected by the hand. With a sly smile, Kin started waving back and forth as though she were gas. Shikamaru was aware that a genjutsu had imprisoned him. As her form broke apart and copies surrounded Shikamaru, Kin remarked, no one has been able to escape me when they are trapped. When she was immobile, Kin reached for another set of senbon. Kin saw that her shadow was linked to another. But when you got an ability that only works on real people, that genjutsu is useless. Shikamaru replied. He produced a shuriken from his weapon pouch after Kin imitated him and did the same. Kin and Shikamaru both passed through the star. Both of them soared past each other and made their way to the other's head. Kin's head struck the wall as Shikamaru swiftly leaned back. Hayate declared, Winner, Shikamaru Nara. While Kin was being transported to the hospital, Shikamaru made his way back to his group. The names began to spin on the screen. Natsu waited, leaning off the railing. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Hiba Inuzuka. Yes, I get to fight the dead last. This will be a cakewalk, right Akamaru? Bark. While Naruto went down the opposite side of the stairs, Hiba stumbled down them. The 2 ninja waited for Hayate while facing each other. Cough. Ready. They both gave a nod. Ready. Begin. After removing Akamaru's sweater, Hiba turned to Naruto. Man-beast mimicry, tunneling fang. Hiba squatted like a ferocious animal, his nails turning to fangs. Kiba began to spin and repeatedly collided with Naruto. I could handle this if it weren't for that snake bastard, Naruto thought. Naruto sidestepped, grabbed Kiba mid-spin, and slammed his head into the ground as Kiba returned for another attack. As Kiba stood up again, Naruto inhaled deeply. Now that Akamaru and Kiba were together, Kiba took out 2 pills. As he put one in his mouth and handed one to Akamaru, whose fur stood up and flushed, Kiba remarked, I didn't think that the dead last would force us to resort to these. With his fingers crossed, Naruto said, Shadow Clone Jutsu. 10 Narutos showed up and hurried Kiba and Akamaru. Kiba yelled, Fang over Fang. Akamaru and he both whirled into tiny tornadoes. Both struck, dispelling Naruto and his clones. Naruto stood up and called forth additional clones. Akamaru leapt on Kiba's back as he stooped. Puff. Now, Akamaru changed into Kiba. They performed Fang over Fang once more. Naruto and his clones took all the blows. After Kiba and Akamaru had completed their attack, he turned to Naruto and grinned. See Akamaru, I told you the dead last was going to be a cakewalk. Hey Naruto. Naruto looked up, barely able to stand. You aren't going to be Hokage. I will, for I am more. As Akamaru was hurled into the wall and returned to normal, Kiba was interrupted. Kiba snarled, What did you do? Kiba was blind to the fact that Naruto's hair was wild and demonic, his teeth had become sharp fangs, and his nails had turned into claws. His eyes, however, pupils are blood red and black slits. Naruto snarled and dropped to his knees. He was furious. Everyone had ridiculed and denigrated him. Naruto thought, but that ends now. The sound of Naruto's roar was inhuman. Everybody had their ears covered. After racing to Kiba, Naruto vanished. The next thing he knew, Naruto was holding Kiba up by the collar of his shirt as he leaned against the wall. Naruto began striking Kiba in the stomach and head. Naruto released him and gave him a knee as he went down. Naruto got ready to go on. He approached the limp form of Kiba. With his claws prepared, he lifted his hand when bam! Erza had knocked him unconscious and sealed the Kyuubi's chakra again after striking him in the head. Winner. Naruto Uzumaki. With his head swollen, Naruto turned to see Hinata hugging him and Erza grinning. Glancing over, Naruto saw Wendy tending to Kiba. Naruto closed his eyes and stood up. Thank you Hinata, Miss Erza. Erza tousled his hair. Please, call me Erza. Naruto gave a nod. Hinata grinned. She managed to assist Naruto without passing out. The names on the screen began to spin once more after they had climbed back up the stairs. Lee was looking forward to it. With a grace that would make a demon weep, Guy declared, This time, Lee, you will be picked and will fight and win. Yes, Guy-sensei. Hyuga Neji vs. Hyuga Hinata. According to Naruto, good luck Hinata. Neji said, Lady Hinata. You will fail and lose this fight. Fate has deemed it so. So give up, as both Hyuga descended. Are you ready? Hayate asked. They both gave a nod. All right, begin. Both Hyuga assumed their familial positions and uttered the words, Byakugan. Their eyes appeared strained, and the nerves in their faces were visible. Naruto yelled, Come on Hinata. You can beat this prick. Neji blocked and countered Hinata's attack with a smile, and she was jabbed 7 times, shutting down her chakra points. With a gasp, Hinata sprang to her feet and struck Neji's inner thigh, crippling his leg. Neji stumbled and fell on one leg. He tripped Hinata, spun around, and jabbed at the chakra point in her heart. When Hinata noticed this, she blocked, giving up her shoulder to keep fighting. Hinata pushed herself out of Neji's reach by using both feet and slamming them into his approaching chest. Hinata stood up and turned to face Neji. Neji said icily, Lady Hinata, just give up. You can't beat me with just one arm. Hinata's fist tightened. She had only desired a close relationship and a bond with her cousin. However, given his current state, it appeared hopeless. Hinata focused chakra into her hand and drew back her fist. The chakra transformed into a lion's head and engulfed her hand. Gentle step twin lion fist. As soon as she released her grip, 2 lion heads flew toward Neji. Neji wondered, how could she do that? That technique is an advanced Hyuga attack. Palm rotation. As Neji began to spin, the lions were blocked by a bluish-white dome. Hinata closed the distance between them and attempted to hit Neji in the chest, but Neji sidestepped and sliced Hinata's neck, causing her to collapse unconscious. Neji positioned himself above her, pushed her until she was on her back, and then pushed his hand in the direction of her heart chakra point. Guy, Kakashi, and Kurenai stopped Neji. Neji frowned. Kurenai spoke with venom in her mouth, saying, Neji, you never strike the heart, especially if the opponent is your own flesh and blood. Neji walked back to his team after they let him go. Wendy and Naruto dashed in Hinata's direction. Hinata, can you hear me, Hinata? With concern in his voice, Naruto inquired. On Hinata's head, Wendy put her hand and said, she is fine, she is just sleeping. Both of Wendy's hands glowed a faint green-white when she put them on Hinata's shoulder. Knowing what Wendy was doing, Naruto gazed in awe. Well, Wendy, I let you handle her. Look after her. Naruto stood up, looking at Neji. I promised to avenge Hinata and beat that jerk. Sakura, Kakashi, and Naruto went back to their home. After sending Hinata to the hospital to recuperate, Wendy rejoined her own team. Okay, let's continue. Natsu sat down without even glancing at the board as 4 names flipped across the screen. Natsu Dragni vs. Rock Lee. Both fighters leapt from their positions and landed in front of Hayate, who was wearing a puzzled expression. Natsu thought, so fast. I didn't even see him. I'll have to rely on my sense of smell. Hayate, who had witnessed the 4th Hokage Hiraishin technique firsthand a few years prior, was not even fazed. Okay, are you two prepared? They both gave a nod. All set. Go ahead. Lee assumed his fighting stance as Natsu charged at him. Natsu punched Lee in the head, but all he hit was air. Hurricane Leaf. The ground broke as Lee swung around and struck Natsu in the head. Never allow your adversaries to turn against you. I learned that from Guy Sesne. Natsu leapt to his feet. Woo, that got the blood flowing. Lee quickly braced himself, and he turns, demonstrating that he was not even hurt. With a sly smile, Natsu cracked his knuckles and punched his hands together. Erza, I can't keep my end or the deal, Natsu said, glancing at Erza. Natsu then slammed his fists together, causing a dragon head to emerge in the middle of an orange-red seal. Natsu inhaled deeply and pulled his hand in front of his mouth. Roar, fire dragon. It was thrown at Lee, and flames broke out and spread wildly. Natsu spun around, his right fist blazing, and punched Lee's approaching foot before swinging his other fiery fist towards Lee's stomach but getting kicked in the head. Lee swiftly dodged it and retaliated with another leaf hurricane. Natsu was launched into the air by Lee, who then ran with incredible speed and drop-kicked him to the ground while he was still in the air. Natsu stood up again. With a crack of his neck, he says, man, that one actually hurt. He pointed to Lee's face as he looked at him and began to laugh. Erza, his eyebrows resemble Yuka's with bushy brows. He was still laughing. Lee appeared to be struck by a wave of hatred as he turned pale. Natsu burst into a spiral flame, and Lee leapt back as he ran and punched him in the face and body. I won't be defeated by your little punches and kicks. What's your name again? Everyone stopped watching anime. My name is Rock Lee, Lee sighed. And I'll use something more powerful if my typical attacks don't work. After removing a set of weights from both legs and letting them fall, leaving little craters behind, Lee knelt and raised one of his leg warmers. It had been a long time since he had been given a good fight, and Natsu wiped his lips, his mouth watering. Now Lee was taking his bandages off a bit, and when he was finished, he drew his arms back and focused. Open. Gate of opening. A green aura enveloped Lee, and the air was whipped by strong winds as his body turned the color of a radish and his eyes turned white, revealing his nerves as well. Everyone appeared impressed. What is Lee doing, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura inquired. Opening. Gates of life and pain, Kakashi said, turning to face Lee. The human body has 8 chakra limiters, or gates. You exert tremendous power if you can open one. However, your body is also under a great deal of strain. He and Sakura kept watching the battle. Opening. Gates of limit and view. In an instant, Lee vanished, had bandaged Natsu, and leapt, dragging him along as his scarf thrashed behind him. Lee flipped over and began to spin. Lotus hidden. Natsu's head was buried in the ground beneath the concrete. Lee leapt to his feet and began inhaling deeply. Erza and everyone else were in awe, but that awe was short-lived because Natsu began to kick and scream that someone was helping him. With a dragon roar, Natsu leapt to his feet, his spiky salmon hair now slightly compressed on his head, and blood gushed across his face, which was puffy and blue. Oh no, it's in motion. Stop the room. Natsu swayed and covered his mouth, his fingers dripping a little vomit. Except for Natsu's team, everyone in the balcony anime fell. So, That caused him to get motion sick, Carla said or questioned. While eating a mackerel, Happy muttered, It had been a while since Lee had performed the hidden lotus, and he was swaying back and forth while inhaling deeply. Finally overcoming his weakness, Natsu wiped the blood from his face and turned to face Lee. That was quite impressive. I suppose it's my turn since you gave it your all. Natsu knelt down with his hands outstretched from his body and punched his hand once more. He raised his hands above his head and said, the flames in my right hand light up, and the flame in my left, same, put them together. Natsu leapt to his feet and yelled, Fire Dragon's brilliant flame. As the two flames combined to form a giant sphere. The flames spread throughout the room after he threw them, and Lee jolted out of his daze and leapt out of the approaching flames, only to be caught. Everyone winced, but it didn't hurt. When the Sandame opened his eyes, he saw flames just a hair's breadth away. After 30 seconds, the flames subsided, and Natsu came out of the fire unharmed, while Lee lay on the ground with burns all over his body. Natsu ascended the steps of the balcony and placed Lee close to Wendy, who had begun tending to Lee's injuries. The fire was so close, but not hot, and Hayate marveled at Natsu's command of it. Hayate cleared his throat. Will Choji Akamichi and Dosu Kinuta step forward? Choji began to tremble, considering forfeiting after witnessing Dosu fight, until Choji, he says, turning to see Asuma grinning. If you win, we'll go to barbecue. All right. With fire blazing in his eyes, Choji yelled. He descended and encountered Dosu. Are you ready? They both nod. All right, get started. Human boulder. Expanding jutsu. Choji yelled, rushed forward, and attempted to trample Dosu to the ground. After Dosu sidestepped the attack and Choji collided with the wall, Dosu approached, put his hand on Choji's body, and struck the device, canceling Choji's jutsu and leaving him unconscious. Winner. Dosu Kinuta. The Sandame cleared his throat and got to his feet. I'd like to congratulate everyone who passed. There will be an all-out elimination tournament in the third round. You can still become Chunin even if you lose a battle. Let's now draw the finals. Numbers. Kakashi drew for Sasuke, while Hayate stood holding a box while the other finalists drew numbers. The Naruto -1, Neji -2, Sasuke -3, Natsu 4, Gajeel 5, Shino 6, Shikamaru 7, Wendy -8, Dosu 9. Who fights Shikamaru will be determined by the battle between Wendy and Dosu. You now have a month to get ready. The biggest arena will host the finals, and I'm excited to watch your bouts. Dismissed. Everyone left the tower to prepare for the finals after the elderly Hokage puffed into smoke. After 2 days, after Wendy healed Lee's burns, Naruto and Sakura concluded their visit to Lee, who was admitted to the hospital. Sakura advised Lee not to push himself after he pledged to get better in not a day longer, no hour, a minute, or a second. Do you think Kakashi will prepare Sasuke and me for the upcoming round, Sakura? With his hands behind his head and his eyes closed, Naruto posed the question. Sakura gave a scuff. Yes, exactly. Why would Kakashi-sensei train you if you wouldn't even be able to defeat Neji in combat? Naruto's hands clenched. Did anyone say I couldn't defeat Neji? I can succeed if I work hard at my training. Naruto stood there as Sakura rolled her eyes and walked out of the hospital. I am eager to demonstrate to her that I will beat that jerk for causing harm to Hinata. Yo. Naruto turned to see Kakashi and another Jonin wearing round shades and a bandana headband. Alongside Natsu, Happy and Natsu were strolling through the village. Man, I can't believe Wendy is getting special Dragon Slayer training with Erza and Gajeel and Lily are off training in that forest we had entered. Happy landed on Natsu's shoulder after flying alongside him. Yes, but that doesn't mean you can't train on your own. But to avoid accidentally destroying it, it would be better to find a nice, remote location. Happy shrugged. What, I can't be careful, do you think? Natsu shouted, drawing a few looks from the shopkeepers and villagers. Happy slept after nodding. Furious, Natsu bounded off in the direction of a small forest. The hot spring resort on Konoha. Naruto was amazed that Ebisu, Konohamaru's tutor, was teaching him how to walk on water. They were going about their daily lives when Ebisu spotted a man wearing traditional red and leaf green clothing, red clogs, and spiky white hair in a ponytail. He could see the indoor women spring through a sizable window crack. I shall not allow indecent actions, especially a man spying on women, Ebisu said, pushing up his glasses. The man turned and made the half-ram sign as Ebisu started to run. With his long hair flying out, he snatched Ebisu and slammed him into the ground, head first. Hey, hold it in. Naruto was in awe as the man, whose hair had returned to normal, looked at Ebisu's body while wearing a gray headband with the kanji for oil printed on it, said, "You want us to get caught?" The man got to his feet and began to steal away. The women in the bath stared out the window as Naruto yelled, "Hey!" The man faced him. "Kid, what do you want? You're interrupting me. Research." He began to chuckle softly. "What? How is research on peeking at women going?" Smirking, the man reached behind him and produced an orange book with a circle with a single diagonal line through it on the back and a man chasing a woman on the front. "I'm the author of the Ika Ika series." Naruto recognized the book right away because Kakashi was constantly reading it. "Well, yes, exactly. You must train me." The man responded with an offensive shot. "Brat, do you even know who I am?" Naruto gave a headshake. A puff of smoke appeared as the man slammed his hand on the ground, and when it cleared, he was standing on a large, dark green, orange toad, which he was posing on. "My name is Jiraiya, the Great Master. Mount Mayuoboku's Toad Sage." Naruto remarked, "More like pervy sage to me." He picked himself up and dusted himself after Jiraiya fell off his toad. "So, how does this relate to training?" Natsu. When Happy awoke, he was at a stream, but Natsu was nowhere to be found. "Well, Natsu, where are you?" Happy wiped the sleep from his eyes and asked. Suddenly, steam rose from the surrounding water as it heated up, and flames burst from the water. As the flames extinguished, Natsu's head emerged from the water. "Oh, Happy, have I awakened you?" Natsu swam to the beach and took a seat beside Happy. "No, you didn't. I feel fantastic, and I just woke up. Want to see the village from above?" Happy asked with great excitement. "Oh, hell yeah," exclaimed Natsu as he leapt to his feet. "Come on, let's do it. But first, let me dry off." Naruto. Jiraiya was supposed to be training when she pulled Naruto to a waterfall, but instead she was snooping around at the three bikini-clad women having fun in the water. After growing impatient, Naruto had a flash of inspiration and made a hand gesture. Puff. Jiraiya's eyes were covered by two hands. "Master Jiraiya," said a smooth, silky female voice, "will you help me in my training now?" Jiraiya turned to see Naruto, normal, with his arms crossed, and a huge perverted grin on his face. Jiraiya was forced to teach Naruto something after the three women packed up and departed. After letting Naruto finish the water whaling exercise and taking off the additional seal that Orochimaru had placed on him, they called it a day. Naruto was flying through the water as if it were solid ground. The following day, "Hey, do you recall me calling forth those toads?" Jiraiya inquired. Naruto said, his expression bewildered, "Yeah." After Jiraiya smeared his blood on the palm of his right hand by biting his thumb, he swiftly went through a series of hand signals and pressed his hand into the ground, where a sealing formula materialized. Jutsu. Summoning. There was another orange toad, but this one was holding a big scroll, so it opened its mouth, untangled its tongue, and gave it to Naruto. Jiraiya said, "This, brat, is the summoning scroll for toads." Jiraiya and the fourth's names were among the names Naruto saw when he opened it. All you need to do is write your name in your blood and leave the fingerprints of the hand you will summon with. When Naruto finished following instructions, the scroll rolled up and vanished, along with the toad. Naruto gave Jiraiya a look. "So, how can I call forth the toads?" Jiraiya gradually demonstrated the signs and monkey see, monkey do, to Naruto over the course of the following hour. However, Naruto could only summon a small tadpole, in contrast to Jiraiya's ability to summon large toads. They experienced the same thing for the following 3 weeks. Natsu. Happy was hovering over a rocky, sand mountain, holding Natsu. Natsu grinned. He preferred being carried by Happy over other modes of transportation. Happy remarked, Natsu, small problem. How are you, little friend?" "Out of juice." Pop. Natsu caught Happy and held him to his chest, back to the ground, as Happy's wings vanished and they both fell to the ground at once. Smash, crack, crumble. Happy and Natsu were surrounded by pieces of what appeared to be a boulder, and when he looked up, he saw Sasuke and Kakashi. As he turned to leave, Natsu said, "If you really think that by busting boulders will make you strong, you're wrong," holding Happy, who was clinging to his vest, in his chest. Being strong comes from having the will and determination to defend others. Sasuke ran ahead of Natsu as he went on. Tell me, how do you control your fire? He demanded or inquired. Natsu's gave Sasuke a sour look. Naruto. Naruto repeatedly called forth tadpoles, which were now a little closer to becoming frogs because they had small legs. Yes, look, pervy sage. It's got legs. All right, brat, it's not a toad, but that's still good. Jiraiya grinned and took a seat beside Naruto after he fell. That might be the cause, I wonder. Hey Naruto. Yeah, what is it? Have you ever felt a surge of power when you fought in the past? Asked Jiraiya. His gaze was fixed on the location of the Kyuubi's seal. Considering all of his battles, Naruto scratched his head. Well, now that you mention it, I have felt a strange power 3 times before. Jiraiya's eyebrow went up. Yeah, the first time was on my first C-ranked mission. I fought a boy named Haku. He had this cool ice ability and he trapped both Sasuke and me in a dome. He threw Senbon at us and Sasuke took a hit and we thought he died. In that moment, I felt a great amount of chakra flow through my body, and with it I beat Haku. Jiraiya cut in. Tell me more about this chakra before you continue. Well, in a simple way, my normal chakra would be blue. But this chakra was red. Jiraiya gave a nod. The second time was when we fought that grass nin in the Forest of Death. He sent a snake at Sasuke and I took the hit and as I held it back I felt the same power. Jiraiya gave another nod. Then lastly was a few days before I met you. I was fighting in the prelims for the exam. I was fighting one of my fellow shinobi. He said things that pissed me off and the power returned, but it was a lot weaker due to the seal that Snake Bastard placed on me. Jiraiya gave another nod. So, when Naruto is in a life or death situation, or when he is angry or under stress, the Kyuubi's chakra seeps out and into him. Naruto, why don't I teach you how to harness that power? Naruto's head snapped up. Sure, if it can help me in this summoning thing it will be worth it. After grabbing Naruto, Jiraiya proceeded to a sizable ravine that contained enormous spiral spikes. Calmly, Jiraiya stated, all you have to do is call forth a toad and make it through this autumn. Wait, what? Exclaimed Naruto. Then, Jiraiya threw him over the opening, causing him to briefly float before plummeting. Naruto let out a scream. He shut his eyes. I'm going to die. The wind brushed against Naruto's face as he thought, but then he didn't. When Naruto opened his eyes, he found himself in a sewer with a massive cage in front of him and a talisman with the kanji for seal placed in the middle of the cage doors. A low growl came from behind the cage, followed by the appearance of a massive red-orange fox that turned to face Naruto. After a moment of fear, Naruto gulped and forced a chilly expression as he recalled his current predicament. All right, you dumb swine. Give me your chakra, you are aware of what is taking place. He uttered the final words. Kyuubi laughed and grinned. All right, Kit, when you need it, I'll give you chakra. Chakra then poured out of the cage doors and encircled Naruto. After opening his eyes and biting his finger, Naruto performed the signs and yelled, summoning jutsu. Wearing a blue kimono coat and a white sash, a giant red toad emerged, his hands and feet pressed against the walls, a small, giant katana blade, a giant pipe with smoke rising from it, and a scar vertically across his left eye. After landing on his head, Naruto glanced around and saw that there was no tail. He exclaimed joyfully, yes, no tail. OMG. Jiraiya, why the fuck did you summon me in such a contentsive space? Naruto only knew that he was in trouble. His eardrums were being blown out while he stood on the head of a giant toad in a ravine. Jiraiya, where the hell are you? I will drown you in oil when I get my hands on you. Gamabunta yelled. Naruto yelled, hey, in an attempt to attract Gamabunta's attention. Naruto caught Gamabunta's attention. He took a deep breath and exhaled a massive cloud of smoke. With a grunt, he leapt out of the gully and landed 50 feet away. Naruto ascended, but Gamabunta was still in the air when he touched down. After landing on Gamabunta's head, Naruto rolled onto the ground and down his back. Gamabunta narrowed his eyes and said, what the hell do you think you're doing? Well, I signed the toad contract and the pervy sage through. The pervy sage? Do you mean Jiraiya, the one who calls himself the toad sage? Naruto gave a blink. Yeah. Gamabunta drained the ash from his pipe and remarked, so he is somewhere near here, for there is no way a brat like you could summon me, Gamabunta, boss of the toads. What? No, Chef Toad, I was the one who summoned you. Yelled Naruto. Gamabunta grinned. This child appealed to him. However, he needs to work on his manners. You say that, but do you have proof of you signing the contract? Because anyone can say they did something. Naruto deadpanned and perspired. With a fire in his eyes, Naruto remarked, well, the pervy sage has it. If I show you that I signed it, you will fight alongside me. When he turned around, Jiraiya was gone. Well, it seems he isn't here. Gamabunta replied, but, if you can stay on my head past sundown, I'll make you my henchman, deal. Naruto grinned toothily as he observed the toad. He gestured to Gamabunta with a clenched hand. I'll stay on that head of yours and have you help me become a chunin. Believe it. Gamabunta smiled. The toad suddenly began to flail about as Naruto leapt onto his head, but Naruto managed to hang on for dear life. This won't be as simple as I initially believed. Somewhere, the training ground was filled with the sound of swords banging and clinging. Iron Dragon clubs and Panther Lily were borrowing one of Erza's swords while Gajiel was swinging both of his arms. Lily dodged and blocked Gajiel's other club as he swung in a downward vertical line. Leaping back, Lily saw Gajiel's body turn black and vanish into the darkness. With a quick turn and a smile, Lily stopped Gajiel's sneak attack. With Wendy and Erza, Wendy was on her hands and knees, panting heavily and drenched in perspiration. Grinning, Erza put on her regular clothes again. Erza approached Wendy and remarked, good job, Wendy. Using those stronger spells are not draining your magic in one use. I'm proud of you and Gajiel and Natsu will be surprised. Grinning, Wendy took Erza's hand and stood up. Wendy grinned broadly and said, thanks to you, I was able to master them. With a smile as wide as Wendy's, Erza said, and thanks to you, I got a new set of armor. Well, since you guys are tired, why don't we go too? Carla said as she moved between the two. Bam, come on, don't you want to be my henchman? A giant toad was shaking its head violently when the three of them looked. A blonde boy wearing an orange jumpsuit was on it. Naruto exclaimed, I hate you Jiraiya. Instead, we didn't see anything, we didn't hear anything, and we don't know them. Erza said, referring to Naruto, as she glanced at Wendy and Carla. Carla and Wendy both nodded. As I was saying, we should go to the indoor bathhouse. Also, when are the others going to arrive? Erza touched her own chin. Well, Magnolia is a week and a half trip, so they should arrive in a few days. The three then departed and headed to the bathhouse. With Fairy Tail, Makarov was massaging his forehead. All it did was give him a headache. He had chosen the teams to protect him in the third round. A flashback. He was standing on the rail. Alright, you brats, I'm going to watch our Dragon Slayers fight in a tournament. And the hosts want me to have at least 3 teams of 4 to go with me. So here they are. Mirajan, Lucy, Juvia, and Gray. Levi, Lizana, and Kana Gildarts. Laxus, Freed, Evergreen, Bixlow. A string of Mull complaints was sent to the entire guild. Juvia yelled that Lucy had bought her way onto Gray's team by bribing the master. Finish the flashback. Makarov watched his teams. While staring at Lucy, Juvia was clinging to Gray and threatening to take him away if Lucy attempted to do so. Evergreen was griping about having to walk rather than relying on them for a lift. Additionally, Kana was berating Gildarts for being such a sentimental father. Makarov grinned as he noticed a gate open. The village gates are within view. And before we continue, I have to say something. As he went on, everyone paused and stared at him. I give the freedom to do whatever you want within TH village, but you are not allowed to fight, start fights, or use your magic for stupid reasons. Only in a life or death situation are you allowed. And meet us at the hotel at 9 o'clock. Okay, let's get moving. Within an hour, the group arrived at the gates. Makarov then proceeded to the Hokage's office after they had scattered. The local bathhouse in Konoha. In the bathhouse, Carla, Wendy, and Erza were unwinding. Wendy grinned and threw her arms over her head. To no one in particular, she questioned, this is amazing, isn't it? According to a voice, I second that. The three turned to see the other female members of Fairy Tail, some of them with their hair up and towels wrapped around their bodies. Somewhere. Man, I don't know what to do. Gramps said as long as we keep out of trouble and get to the hotel by 9, we can do whatever we want. Gray replied. Having wandered off from the others, he made the decision to search for something intriguing. Gray was confronted by Anbu. One of them said, Sir, we would like you to accompany us. Huh, what's wrong? I haven't done anything. Walking around the village naked is not allowed. Gray freaked out and looked down. Again, he had not realized that he had taken off his clothing. Gray ran to get his clothes, the Anbu captain stepped forward, and they pursued. When Gray noticed his pants in the street, he grinned and thought, well, at least I ain't bored anymore. With Naruto, in the evening, Gamabunta was thrashing so much that he hadn't even begun to perspire as the sun was setting. Naruto was making a valiant effort to remain atop Gamabunta's head. The toad's continual movement and the moisture on its skin made it challenging to adhere to him with chakra. This must continue for 3 more minutes. Then I'll be dead, he thought. Gamabunta leapt and stunned Naruto in midair, causing him to fall and lose his head. Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu. A line of Naruto's materialized, seized Gamabunta's kimono, and grabbed each other. His clones puffed to death when Naruto landed on them. Naruto's breathing became erratic. He had been using his shadow clones a lot that day, and it was now wearing him down. Naruto fainted and fell off Gamabunta's head, saying, less than a minute left. Gamabunta's attention was drawn to his thumping landing. I haven't had someone stay on my mind for so long in a very long time. Not since the death of the fourths. In front of him, a scroll fell and unfolded. It was the scroll that summoned the toad. It contained Naruto's name. Gamabunta lit his pipe, inhaled deeply, and blew out a cloud of smoke. I already knew he was the one who summoned me. All I needed was proof if he deserved to have our help. Just like Lord Fukasaku did with you. With a sly smile, Jiraiya left the precipice where he was. Gamabunta bent over and used his tongue to seize Naruto. Before I leave, I'll take you to a place of healing. It's the least I can do for all I put you through today. Gamabunta then puffed out of the forest and landed directly in front of the hospital in Konoha. After setting Naruto at the door, he vanished. Suddenly, Jiraiya picked Naruto up and escorted him to a hospital room. Natsu. It was nighttime when Natsu and Happy were flying over Konoha once more. The stars gleamed like tiny diamonds, and there was a new moon. Their faces felt good in the breeze. When Happy ran out of magic and landed at the hotel, he noticed Wendy, Erza, and the other girls making their way to where he was. Numerous hellos and how are you doings were said to Natsu. The master was steaming when they walked into their room. He was just done shouting at Gray. Juvia had moved to put herself between them and began to embrace Gray. Levi searched for Lily and Gajiel. Putting his elbow on her head, he crept up behind her and remarked, "What a nice arm rest." She made him fall with a smile and a head movement. It was Natsu who initiated a pillow fight. Everyone took part, with the exception of Mira, Gildarts, the Master, and Laxus and the Thunder Legion. Everyone didn't worry at all and had a good time. What might occur? Konoha. Somewhere. Dosu was perched atop the case cage's hotel roof. He proceeded to the next structure and searched for the room of the case cage. He leapt and avoided a massive sand fist. He sees a 14-year-old boy with a gourd on his back, pale green eyes with dark rings, and red hair when he looks up. He was dressed for dessert. Dosu grinned. I was ordered to kill the case cage. So I won't let anyone, even you, Gaara of the Sand, stop me. Gaara's eyes narrowed. He grasped his head as it pulsed. Let me go. Permit me to murder him. His blood is what I want. Gaara grimaced and turned to face Dosu, his eyes glowing yellow with a strange 4-circle plus sign. Mom. Desires. Your blood. Dosu dodged and landed a few feet away from Gaara as he yelled, causing a dark tan sand to shoot out of his gourd. Sand lunged at him once more, but he was able to avoid it before it swiftly changed course and grabbed his leg, crushing it. Dosu sat up and saw Gaara in front of him, grinning like a predator ready to kill its prey. Ah! Was all he could say. Your filthy blood will be with mother. With a shout, Gaara's sand transformed into an odd arm that seized Dosu and encircled him in sand. Sand burial, Gaara exclaimed, raising his hand and clenching his fist. Blood seeped into the sand, but it quickly vanished as the sand tightened and a crunch was heard. Mother, are you happy? Gaara laughed and said, fresh blood was always your favorite. Baki observed his student conversing with his mother. After calming down and getting his eyes back to normal, Gaara went inside and leaned against the wall until daybreak. Hospital in Konoha. I still find it hard to believe you did that, man. I wouldn't do it, as it seems too problematic, Shikamaru remarked, giggling at Naruto. Naruto smiled and peered out the window. Jiraiya had stopped by earlier to fill in the holes left by Gamabunta's enormous toad footprints. Choji brought a fruit basket and had indigestion, so Shikamaru was in. With a menacing smile, Naruto picked up an apple and said, "Hey, let's eat this in front of him. Choji will go crazy over it." Shikamaru smiled, "Let's do it. Man, you're evil." They both hurried to Choji's room after leaving the room. Natsu. With just one day of training remaining before the final portion of the exams, Natsu and Happy were in one of the many training grounds, arguing with Gray over who was superior. Happy ate his fish as he saw Natsu punch Gray in the head before being frozen and struck in the face instead. Natsu punched his fists and remarked, "Ah, that does it, Snowflake." "Alright, Pyro, I'm going all out," Gray said, putting his hands together and covering his right elbow and left hand with ice after he threw off his shirt and pants, leaving him in his underwear. Fire Dragon Iron Fist, Ice Make, 7 Slice Dance. Enough. They let go, jumped back, and turned to face Erza after he gave them a noogie and punched both of their heads together. "Natsu, you shouldn't get hurt multiple times right now. You have to compete in a tournament tomorrow." With such authority that the master would become tense, Erza declared, "Therefore, I forbid you to fight anyone until tomorrow." Sweating, Gray remarked, "Oh yeah Erza, we will keep that in mind." "I," said Natsu, perspiring equally. Erza grinned, and Wendy and Carla emerged from behind her, approaching Natsu and Gray. The ground began to rumble and split all of a sudden, and Juvia yelled, "Gray, my beloved." She shot out of the ground as water and wrapped herself around Gray before changing back to normal. "My dear one, why would you leave that blonde bimbo alone with me? And why are you and Wendy by yourself? Do you like young girls without breasts?" Carla started talking to Wendy, trying to get her to stop sobbing. Wendy knew she was a little small, but that didn't mean Juvia had to say it so cruelly. Erza put her hand on Wendy's head as she collapsed and began to cry, and when Wendy looked up, she saw Erza. Erza grinned, turned to Juvia, and said, "Requip." Juvia's spine tingled, and she turned to see Erza wearing her Sea Empress armor, grinning menacingly. "You know how Wendy feels about her body, Juvia," said a terrified Juvia. And with that final remark, "You went too far." The village was filled with two distinct screams. Gray and Juvia were unconscious, their mouths hanging open as smoke poured from them. Erza glanced back at Natsu and Wendy as she changed back into her regular attire. "Thus, Gajil and you are both covered by the no-fighting policy, Wendy. You get it?" Wendy nodded and stood up. "Okay, let's go unwind in the hot springs," Erza said, putting her arms around their necks. "Every one of us." Carla and Happy nodded, as did Gray and Juvia. Lily and Gajil. Shirtless and panting heavily, Gajil's hands transformed into iron swords, and Lily wielded 2 swords, their blades clashing and charging. They continued to move for a few more minutes before Lily transformed back into his diminutive form. Somewhere, boulders were being smashed all around by Sasuke. According to Kakashi, "All right, it seems that is enough for today Sasuke. And with this new power, I'll be able to beat that pink-haired loser," said Sasuke with a sly smile. Warm springs. Natsu let out a sneeze. Gray yelled, "Ah, don't sneeze on me Pyro." "Oh, so I get credit for heating the water," Natsu shouted in response. Happy said, "Natsu, please calm down." They both stood up and slammed their heads together, with towels wrapped around their waists. "Stop talking." The women's side began to ring, and they both leapt to their sides and pretended nothing had happened. They had only been there 5 minutes when they started fighting, and Erza was furious. Wendy couldn't help but smile at her teammates' actions, so Juvia got in her face and said something about Gray. However, she stopped when Erza's water sword cut her in half, and after she had reformed, Juvia cowered behind Wendy and apologized. "Erza, geez," Carla remarked, "you're swinging swords when we should be unwinding." Erza closed her eyes, sat against a rock, and inhaled deeply, taking in the sounds of the water, their breathing, the movements of Natsu's, Happy's, and Gray's, and another sound. The sound was akin to a giggle, and as she snapped her eyes open and threw a throwing sword into the tall rocks, Jiraiya leapt out and fell into the men's bath. An elderly man landed between Natsu and Gray's baths, and they kicked him over into the women's bath. To put it plainly, Erza and Juvia left after beating the living daylights out of him. The Hyuga compound. Byakugan activated Neji, who was practicing on a dummy while in his Juken stance in the courtyard. "That kid with the blonde hair is destined to lose to me." Compound Aburame. Bugs were flying around the room as Shino and his father drank tea. Naruto. Naruto was tending to a swollen lip that was rapidly healing after Choji had struck him over the fruit. In his hospital room, Naruto gazed out the window to see the stars gleaming like diamonds. Well, I'm as prepared as I can be for tomorrow's finals. Smirking in his watery prison, Kyuubi continued, and you'll have my chakra at your expense if needed, Kit. Naruto lay down and dozed off because he couldn't agree more with his tenant. The following day, Konoha Coliseum. Shinobi from every village were there to see what they had missed, and people were sitting there excitedly waiting for the finals to begin. While the other teams were dispersed throughout the stadium crowd, Makarov, the Cage, and the Hokage were seated in the top box, with Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro standing behind their leader, Anbu leader Neko Cat, and two others behind the Hokage, and Laxus and the Thunder Legion behind their master. Clearing his throat, Sarutobi stood. Welcome, civilians, to fellow shinobi. I, the Sandaime, is proud to present the biannual Chunin exam finals. This year, the Yosekage of the Hidden Fairy Village and the Cage of the Hidden Sand Village are our guest cages, Sarutobi said as the audience applauded. A female voice said, and don't forget about me. Makarov turned to see Mavis Vermilion, the first master of Fairy Tail. Mavis grinned and sat on the wall in front of Makarov as his and the other FT members' jaws fell. I hope he isn't crazy, the other cages thought as they observed him. After clearing his throat, Sarutobi went on, the matches will now proceed as follows. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Neji Hyuga. The audience applauded, but there were also boos directed at Naruto. More applause followed, with the Fairy Tail members being the loudest. Then Sasuke Uchiha vs. Natsu Dragneel. Fairy Tail was still loud, but the other cheers were a little quieter. After them is Gajeel Red Fox vs. Shino Aburame. Shino's head had a tiny tick mark on it. And finally, Shikamaru Nara vs. Wendy Marvel. As a small firework jutsu went off above the arena, the crowd went crazy, and Natsu began to drool at the fire's various colors. Before we continue the exam, my fellow Cage would like to say a few words. The Cage got to his feet and said, I hope that all our fellow shinobi enjoy the tournament and no one gets seriously hurt. He then took a seat. Knowing that Natsu and Gajeel would do a lot of damage, Makarov got up and leapt onto the railing. Hopefully we all enjoy the fights, and to those who make Chunin and those who don't, that you will continue to hone your skills. Makarov sat down, a little perspiring. Hopefully Wendy doesn't go overboard. Let the tournament begin, Sarutobi said, surveying the arena. Permit Neji and Naruto to enter the arena. OSHT, the last section of the test is about to begin. Please review, comment, and submit fight ideas. I want my readers to enjoy a good story. As Naruto and Neji entered the arena, the crowd applauded. Natsu's face was next, and it was against that stuck-up, duck-assed hair fuck, as his smile grew. The arena, in the middle of a circular arena with small trees along the wall, Naruto and Neji turned to see the proctor. Whirling his senbon in his mouth, Genma said, all right, my name is Genma, I'm filling in for Hayate. He turned to face the cage box, and the Hokage nodded. This is exactly like the preliminary steps, Genma said, nodding and turning to face the two genin. You will battle until your opponent is knocked out, they surrender, or you kill them, which is not acceptable. Are you two prepared? Both nodded, and while Naruto stood there, Neji assumed his Juken stance. Genma said, and, as he swiftly swung his hand down after raising it. Get started. Neji slapped his hand down, spun around, and slammed both of his palms into Naruto's stomach, blowing him back and knocking the wind out of him as Naruto ran forward at him after Genma jumped back. Neji refused to back down, saying, this guy is no pushover. He is strong, but that doesn't mean I can't beat him. Naruto collected his thoughts and stood back up. Neji looked up at Naruto and said, Neji. Why? With venom seeping into every word, Naruto asked, why would you try to kill your own flesh and blood? Neji said, my clan has two branches, the main house and the branch house, as he broke out of his fighting stance. He reached up and undid his headband, saying, and members of the branch house are branded with the caged bird seal. There was a green X, with green hooks on the left and right of his forehead. Anyone in the branch family is treated like slaves to the main house. As his rage grew, Naruto clenched his fist and said, and for that you hate Hinata enough that you would try to kill her. No, it's not Lady Hinata that I hate, Neji said, laughing and donning his headband. It is my father's twin brother and uncle, Lord Hiashi, whom I hate and abhor. But why? Isn't it the responsibility of the branch houses to keep the main house safe? Neji went back to his fighting stance and said, Byakugan. His eyes strained and the veins in his head protruded. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 100 Narutos materialized and charged Neji after Naruto shook his head and crossed his fingers. He punched the nearest clone and said, 2 palms. The clone puffed and another one emerged. 8 trigrams 64 palms. Neji said. 4 palms. 8 palms. 16 palms. 32 palms. Neji smirked and said, 64 palms. He struck Naruto 64 times, striking multiple chakra points in his left shoulder and torso, leaving him vulnerable and alone after all the clones had vanished. You're correct. Protecting the main house is the responsibility of the branch houses. But the day Lord Hiashi had my father killed, I lost all hope of defending that main house. In the stands, with remorse, Hiashi closed his eyes as he sat with his second daughter, Hanabi, who turned to her father and said, Is that true, father? But, I did not have him killed, Hiashi said, opening his eyes and nodding. Returning to the arena, Neji and Naruto gazed at each other from afar. It was the 3rd birthday of Lady Hinata. To negotiate a peace treaty, a representative from the Hidden Cloud arrived. Every clan was present, with the exception of ours. In addition to being Lady Hinata's birthday, I was also given this seal on that day, which can be extremely painful and seals away our Byakugan after we pass away. Naruto inhaled deeply, bracing himself for the battle in Neji's tale that lay ahead. Lady Hinata was abducted that evening in order to steal her eyes after someone broke into the Hyuga compound. He was discovered and killed by Lord Hiashi. It was the Cloud Ambassador when they unmasked him. Lord Hiashi had my father killed after the Raikage demanded the head of the man who killed their representative. They were identical twins. Both are equally strong. For his clan, however, he was killed. His death on that day was inevitable. Thus, he died defending the main house. Naruto hung his head, his hair covering his eyes, and his hands hung loosely at his sides. And you attribute that to someone else. You are pitiful. You are the pitiful one. Neji said in a, I won so give up tone, I have blocked off the chakra flow in your arm and you can't mold chakra with it. Are you certain of that? Naruto raised his head, his eyes blazing with fire, and said, Neji, you are in for a world of hurt. The box of competitors. Natsu was taken aback. He was eager to witness Naruto's display of great power. Gajeel grinned, knowing that the fight would now become more interesting. The arena. You can't beat me, Neji grinned. You couldn't defeat me even if you could shape chakra. Okay, Kyuubi, let's show him that we can defy fate and create our own path, Naruto said, putting his hands together. Kyuubi smiled and said, Okay, Kit. You go now. Make good use of it. Orange chakra filled Naruto's chakra network, healed all of his internal wounds, and shrouded his body in a cloud-like layer, causing his chakra to soar. What's this? Neji wondered. He can't possibly have more chakra than he began with. Neji saw Naruto stop behind him, ducked, and struck at his heart, but as his hand approached, the orange chakra grabbed hold of it and began to burn. Naruto vanished. Neji withdrew and examined his hand, which was burned at the wrist. The cage box. That brat has a lot of power, Sarutobi. Makarov remarked, I can't believe he has that good control of it. Naruto, what did Jiraiya do to get you to use the fox's power? Sarutobi asked, nodding. Third, I think that boy has another presence deep inside his mind giving him power. Makarov nodded and kept watching as Mavis gaped in shock. Naruto. Naruto scowled and said, This chakra will burn if anyone touches it except me. Therefore, unless you're prepared to lose your hands, I made your family's jutsu useless, he said. He wasn't going to lose, Neji moaned, but the way things were going, his victory was pretty certain. Neji coughed up blood and tried to attack Naruto, but was too weak. Naruto then disappeared once more and punched Neji in the stomach, burning his shirt and flesh. You say that you hate the main house over your father's death, Naruto said, releasing his breath as the chakra shroud disappeared and he began to breathe deeply. He died for no fault of his own. I am aware that he didn't want his son to be hateful. After hearing this, Neji turned to face the sky and saw 2 birds fly overhead and land in a nearby tree. Neji then left. After checking Neji's pulse, Genma emerged and declared, Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto grinned as the crowd applauded and he slowly returned to the competitor's box while his own wounds from the chakra shroud healed. The cage box. Cage, what a fantastic match, don't you think? Makarov uttered those words. The cage answered, yes, indeed. Mother, there is a strong fighter. If I can kill him and let you drink his blood, you'll be happy, Gaara said, beginning to shake, but not out of fear but excitement. Shukaku remarked, that brat is just like you, Gaara, he has a tailed beast in him giving him power. And yes, I'll be very happy if you kill him. Gaara grinned. When Temari and Kankuro saw this, they braced themselves for the worst. The box of competitors. Hey, congrats on winning, Natsu said as she approached Naruto. As he descended to the arena, he said, wish me luck. The arena. After waiting 10 minutes for Sasuke to show up, Natsu and Genma said they would move on to the next fight in the exams. Natsu was furious and wanted to start a fight right away. He glared at Makarov, who returned the look, saying, make a scene and I'll kill you. With a gulp, Natsu returned to the box. Before Natsu entered, Gajeel and Shino left. Gajeel, good luck, don't undervalue him, Natsu remarked sarcastically. Hands in his trench coat, Gajeel smirked and said, no sweat, salamander, but make sure to beat that uptight prick when you fight. The cage box. Shino Aburame and Gajeel Red Fox will play in the second match of the Chunin exams, Makarov said, sitting up and clearing his throat. I hope the best man prevails. The arena. All right, the rules are the same as the last fight, said Genma, who was standing between the two. All set. They both gave a nod. All right, get started. Shino hurled his insects at Gajeel, who retreated as the insects struck him and encircled him. Shino then moved toward the horde of insects, which turned back to him, exposing only the ground. Shino looked in every direction, but Gajeel was nowhere to be found. Observe your shadow. Shino notices Gajeel emerging from a shadow as someone yelled from the stands. You believed that I would be swayed by your tiny insects. Well, Gajeel said, they won't assist you. I thought he was weird, but now I realize that he was the only person in his group who didn't use his ninjutsu, Shino reflected. Are you prepared to fight? Gajeel asked with a sly smile. Well, I'm coming, he said, drawing his arm back, club of the Iron Dragon. Gajeel threw a fist, but it extended and struck Shino, changing into a club of iron. There was silence in the crowd. The cage box. Makarov, the cage inquired, how is your team doing? The pink-haired girl uses fire style, the girl uses wind and heals, and now this one uses transformations and shadows. Is it a Genkei Kekai? No, their style is Dragon Slayer. Taught to them by dragons. Makarov's only statement. And no, Gajeel, our Iron Shadow Dragon Slayer will be facing Shino. Damn, Neji beat the living daylights out of him. There was silence among the crowd. They had just witnessed a genin transform his arm into iron and become a shadow. Orochimaru was in awe as he watched. He was unaware that such a Kekai Genkei existed. He must be aware of the process. The arena. Gajeel had a sly smile. Even with Natsu and Wendy, he had taken the crowd by surprise and planned to keep it that way. Shino was obtaining information. He can manipulate them by turning into a shadow, to start. Secondly, he has the ability to harden and transform his body into metal, which he can then use to attack. I'm not sure if I can defeat him at all. Gajeel swung his arm and ran forward. Shino created a shield with his bugs. Gajeel shouted, Iron Dragon Roar. As he withdrew, Shino saw a gray cloud of iron fly in his direction. He was covered in bugs, but 1/8 of them died and dropped to the ground. When Shino realized Gajeel was gone once more, he jumped. He checks his shadow right away. He was unambiguous. Bam! Shino took a blow. He turned and saw Gajeel as a shadow on the wall, with only his club arm visible until it vanished into the darkness and drove away. He's on his toes. As Gajeel hid in the shade of a tree, he thought, it's good that I practiced this and know have a great strategy. Shino was breathing heavily. The blow he had received and the need to monitor Gajeel's movements had left him exhausted. This time, Gajeel emerged as a shadow with scythes in his hands. He attempted to cut Shino's torso, but failed, and Shino's foot kicked him in the jaw instead. Gajeel held his jaw and went back to normal. Gajeel was hit by Shino's insects as he threw his arms forward. When he saw this, he swung his arms and cut the insects to pieces. The crowd noticed 2 enormous saw-like swords on his arms when he had stopped. People, as though their lives depended on it, the crowd was cheering. They had never witnessed anyone defying an Aburame and making it this far. The cage box. You mean they were taught by dragons in the art of slaying dragons? That is very far-fetched Yosekage. The cage responded. Well, I know that. But with all the things they have been up against, I don't doubt it. Makarov replied. From behind his grandfather, Laxus remarked, well, they are all powerful, I'll give that to them, but each has something to prove. Sarutobi's eyebrow went up. Well, their dragons had abandoned them. They want to find them, and they think that if they will get stronger, their dragons will come back. Makarov explained. The two cage gave a nod. The arena. Gajil knelt down, his hands returning to normal, and he exhaled sharply. Iron. Dragon. Swords. What's happening? His bugs never came into contact with me. How, then? Bugs had already returned to Shino when Gajil threw off his coat and it hit the ground. I placed them on you when you had landed your attacks on me earlier. I have drained over half of your chakra, so I suggest that you give up. Shino said with a smile. Gajil got to his feet. His eyes were hidden by his bandana. No, I will win this fight. And I will enjoy giving our audience a show. Gajil moved to put his coat back on. Then he reached inside and extracted a 13-inch dagger. He examined it and licked the blade. The crowd is getting uneasy about this. So, you intend to beat me with that? It won't be very effective, but go on and try, said Shino. Gajil's grin widened. He bit the blade, tore off a piece, and began to eat it after saying, Kid, you have no idea what you are in for. This will be your biggest mistake. I'm Gajil the Iron Dragon Slayer. With the exception of Fairy Tail, everyone's eyes popped out of their sockets as Gajil ate the entire dagger, including the handle and blade. As Gajil arched back, his magic surrounded him and became apparent. Then Gajil leaned forward and it was gone. His eyes were white, and his skin was dark gray. As he dashed in Shino's direction, Gajil declared, You are dealing with the Iron Shadow Dragon Slayer. Iron Shadow Dragon Club. Once more, Shino's bugs formed a shield, but Gajil's shadow-covered club tore straight and struck Shino. Then he became a shadow, merging with Shino's. He struck him with his club a few more times. Iron Shadow Dragon ROOOOOOOOOAR! Exclaimed Gajil as he leapt out. His mouth ejected a yellow beam that struck Shino with spirals of black and gray. When the smoke cleared, Shino's bugs were all dead and he was unharmed. Gajil smiled. He transformed back into his former self and said, Now, I would like you to surrender. If we continue, you'll die. Shino gave a nod. When Genma showed up, she declared, Winner, Gajil Red Fox. The cheers were audible throughout the hidden stone village. While Neji was discussing his father with Hiyashi in the Colosseum, Gajil helped Shino to his feet and escorted him to the hospital. The cage box. To introduce the next group of fighters, the cage stood up. Ladies and gents, I take great pleasure to introduce the next fighters. Shikamaru Nara and Wendy Marvel. The audience applauded. The loudest cheers came from the fairies. The box of competitors. Shikamaru and Wendy stepped out of the box and into the arena. Same rules, and are you ready? Asked Genma, who was standing between them. Shikamaru gave a nod. Despite her hesitation, Wendy nodded. Genma wondered, how could they send a sweet girl like her into a fighting tournament? You can do it, Wendy. Wendy exclaimed as she turned to see Happy and Natsu supporting her. She turned to Shikamaru with a smile. All right, begin. Shikamaru backed up and chose to quickly end the battle by using his shadow possession jutsu after Genma retreated. Wendy prepared and readied herself. Shikamaru made a sign with his hands while kneeling. Shadow possession jutsu. He hurled his shadow in Wendy's direction. Sky Dragon Roar! Exclaimed Wendy as she leapt out of the way. Shikamaru dodged a tiny tornado that blasted out of her mouth. The assault bent and trailed after him. When the attack destroyed the tree, Shikamaru moved at the last second after jumping into it. In the middle of the crowd, everyone had to raise their jaws except for Erza. Lucy, Juvia, and Gray let out their loudest cheers. Happy and Natsu cheered and gave a whoop. The Thunder Legion and Laxus both smiled. Mavis and Makarov grinned. Kana, Mira, Lizana, Gildarts, and Levy were all laughing at how the crowd had responded to Wendy's assault. The cage box. In an attempt to determine whether his eyes were tricking him, the cage leaned forward. They certainly weren't. As though it were instinctive, this child was able to perform wind style without focusing chakra. The arena, hidden in the trees, was Shikamaru. She was unaware of my presence. So I can catch her now. He clutched his hands. Shadow stitching jutsu. Wendy leapt and yelled, Sky Dragon Wingbeat. As shadow needles emerged from the tree, A cloud of dust covered the arena as she flailed her arms and powerful wind slammed into the ground. As the cloud cleared, Shikamaru noticed that Wendy had vanished. PSS's. He turned to see Wendy crouching behind him, grinning, saying, "I found you. I dislike getting into fights. Therefore, I would prefer it if you gave up." Wendy was chased by shadows as Shikamaru leapt out of the tree, and she ran to stop 5 feet away from Shikamaru. She saw a second shadow joining hers as she looked down. Shikamaru remarked, "I would like it if you gave up." With a sigh, Wendy turned to face him and said, "Come on, Wendy. With both eyes closed, you can defeat this man." All the fairy tale mages cheered, and that was enough for Wendy. "My name is Sky Dragon Wendy. A fairy tale member." A powerful gust of wind exploded from Wendy's body as she yelled. "People, everybody shut their eyes." The arena. Shikamaru's body moved violently, and he saw the wind encircling her limbs, moving them and making him imitate her. "What? How can you accomplish this?" "This cannot be accomplished by any wind style," Shikamaru stated. "It's not wind. Sky Dragon magic is what it is." Wendy said, "I have control over everything in the air." She leaned back and took a long, strange slurping breath, then leaned forward. People, everyone with chakra sensing sensitivity shuddered in terror as Wendy's power increased threefold and then some. The arena. "Now, I'll end this," Wendy said. Sky Dragon ROOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOO After the roar subsided, Shikamaru collapsed, his ears literally bleeding, unable to cover them and unable to handle it. The crowd cheered as Genma called the match and Sarutobi got to his feet as Wendy gasped and inhaled deeply. There will be an hour-long break, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, go outside and stretch your legs. Wendy and her group headed to the cage box as the arena cleared out. Did you see that, Master? Mira smiled and remarked. Wendy completely cleaned his clocks. While sipping a mug of alcohol, Makarov grinned and said, yes, I am very impressed by how you have grown, Wendy. Wendy blushed and muttered that she wasn't that much better. After Lucy gave her a hug and congratulated her and Gajila on their victory, Natsu stopped laughing and turned to see Gaara standing there, clutching his left arm as though it were hurt. Mom, wants your blood, Sky Maiden and Black Steel, he said, glancing at Wendy and Gajil. Gaara didn't notice when Mavis walked in front of him and put a hand on his head. He has another presence in his mind, just like the blonde from before, but he is attempting to take control of it by force, which is why he is acting this way. Then Gaara turned to face Natsu. You are second only to the blonde fool, the most fascinating of your pals. Soon enough, I'll kill you all. Gripping him, Natsu asked, what do you mean by soon enough? Natsu leapt back as sand flew between them, and when the sand returned to Gaara's gourd, he said, you'll find out, and turned to leave. Natsu, Mavis remarked, he is extremely unstable, but he is strong like your blonde friend Naruto. And I understand why, so I'll take care of it when this is over. She didn't appear to be kidding. And plus, she said with a laugh, your fight is next so you better get ready. Happy, Natsu said, nodding. Come on, let's fly. We have plenty of time. Happy grabbed him and said, aye, sir. They took off. Panther Lily remarked, I feel like this isn't going to work out well for them. Carla said, I agree with you. After an hour. Genma looked at his watch and said, if they aren't here soon, both will be disqualified. Neither Natsu nor Sasuke were present in the arena. After a sudden gust of wind, he saw Sasuke and Kakashi standing in front of him. Sasuke was wearing a black one-piece with the Uchiha crest on it, and his left hand and leg were bandaged. This is Sasuke Uchiha, awaiting Natsu Dragneel. 30 seconds pass. Crash. After landing in the arena with Happy, Natsu wiped away some blood and remarked, ow, that will leave a mark. As Happy flies back to Wendy, he turns to face Sasuke. Smirking, Sasuke remarked, you ready to lose and hand over your secrets? And when did I say that I would give you anything? Natsu uttered those words. Sasuke activated his Sharingan and said, I am a Uchiha, I always get what I want. Genma intervened and reviewed the regulations. Are you ready? They both nodded. All right, go ahead. Running toward Sasuke, Natsu threw a right hook, but Sasuke dodged it and punched Natsu in the face in retaliation. Natsu stumbled and launched a barrage of blows, all of which Sasuke either blocked or sidestepped. If I can't hit him with my fists, then extending my flames will do, Natsu thought as he pulled back his arm and punched Sasuke's face, burning his cheek and singing his hair. How did he do that? Sasuke asked, holding his cheek as he ducked as a flaming foot lunged at his head. Sasuke's eyes widened and he activated his Sharingan as Natsu's attacks became more frequent and he was unable to keep up. He grabbed Natsu's arm, twirled him around, and attempted to launch him into the air, but he was hit by a massive wave of vomit and let Natsu fly instead. The box of competitors. Happy was prevented from assisting Natsu by Gajil holding his tail. Cat, it's a one-on-one battle. Salamander might be disqualified if you meddle. Happy ceased to struggle, but what if he passes away? Gajil laughed. He would rather go through hell and beat the crap out of the devil before losing to this kid. The arena. With drool and vomit on his face and snot hanging from his nose, Natsu stumbles out of his wall print. Ma, please stop it. Before he puked again, he said, spinning. The audience almost threw up. Grossed out, Sasuke was wiping away all the vomit that had gotten on him. He then charged a motion-sick Natsu and punched him in the stomach, causing more vomit to land on his face. Og, horrible, what the devil is wrong with you? You can't throw up on me. Sasuke yelled, attempting to wipe the vomit from his face once more. As he slowly recovered, Natsu spun and swiped Sasuke's leg, causing a crescent blade of fire to follow his ankle. Fire Dragon Talon! He exclaimed. Sasuke leapt up and leapt away from Natsu after feeling his head slam hard into the ground and blood seeping out of the back of his head. You got me there, loser, he grinned. After saying, I know your fighting style, and now I'll end this, he removed the strange belt from his arm and performed a series of signs while channeling chakra into it. The sound of birds and what appeared to be lightning burst into his hand. The audience applauded, with the banshee with pink hair giving her, Sasuke, the loudest applause. Kakashi squinted. He had forbidden Sasuke from using that move until he explicitly said so, but now he was doing it while sporting a murderous expression. Why did you teach him your lightning blade, Kakashi? Guy said, it's too risky, and Lee concurred. With a smile, Natsu said, I got something like that also. His fist erupted in a deep crimson red as he pulled it back. Fire Dragon Iron Fist. They both yelled, Chidori. A shock wave was produced by both attacks, and Sasuke, in particular, leapt back and inhaled deeply. The cage box. Laxus chuckled as he observed Sasuke's attack, saying, he can use lightning too. I wonder if Natsu can eat lightning. Next time he annoys me, I'll find out. The arena. Sasuke ducked and flew through another set of seals as Natsu leaned back and roared at him. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Natsu, who was growing hungry and had stars in his eyes because there was fire he could eat, was struck by the enormous ball of flames. Sasuke smiled as the flames engulfed him and turned to walk away, saying, man, these flames aren't as bad as I originally thought. Sasuke hears a slurping sound and turns to see the flames entering Natsu's mouth. How could a boy eat fire? The audience had to ask. How could a boy consume an iron dagger? These rushed past their weak brains. With a cheeky smile, Natsu's burped and wiped his mouth as the flames went out. Thanks for the grub, now I got a fire in my belly. In a fit of rage, Sasuke charged at Natsu, but his fist was caught and smashed into the wall. Sasuke charges at him with a speed that rivals Lee's as Natsu approaches him. With both fists raised, Natsu swiftly spun and punched Sasuke's sneak attack, sending a cloud of dust flying in all directions. Natsu thought, this guy is as fast as the eyebrow freak. Overcrowded, Lee wiped his nose and sneezed. The arena. Pulling back, Sasuke charged once more, knocking the wind out of Natsu with a punch to the gut before slamming his head into the floor. Sasuke notices that Natsu's scarf flew off his neck and lands next to him. Natsu gets up and clumsily tries to grab it, but Sasuke picks it up. Natsu yelled angrily, hey, give that back, no one is allowed to touch my scarf. Oh, and what's the reason? Sasuke inquired. My dad gave it to me as a gift. Now give it to me. Sasuke grinned and said, and what if I don't? Natsu shouted. Natsu growled and said, I'll make you pay. Sasuke stomped the scarf into the ground and said, I'd like to see you try. When Natsu snapped, both of his hands lit up, he closed the distance between them, and he quickly punched Sasuke. Recall his battle with Gajil as a Phantom Lord Mage. After landing, Sasuke coughed up blood, made signs, and performed a second Chidori. I told you, he said as he approached and struck Natsu, causing her to catch fire and neutralize Sasuke's attack. Mess up my scarf, Natsu says, looking up, and I'll kill you. As if, Sasuke chuckled. If I were blindfolded and had both arms broken, I could still defeat you. Ack. When Sasuke accepted its power, his chakra sword and marks appeared on his body as his curse mark reacted, pulsing and burning hot. Overcrowded. Every fairy tale mage knew this meant trouble, and Sarutobi and most of the village elders knew this kind of chakra. The arena. With a murderous smile, Sasuke got to his feet and made a third Chidori. Kakashi thought, that idiot. He can't make a third one. For you, this is the end. Die now. With a shout, Sasuke shot off like a bullet. When Natsu noticed, he said, Fire Dragon. Chidori. Sasuke yelled as he struck Natsu in the stomach, causing blood to flow from his mouth, sending him to his knees and landing on his face. When the curse mark disappeared and Sasuke was facing Natsu, Genma showed up and cleared his throat, saying, Winner, sass. Oh no. With his legs wrapped around Sasuke's neck and blood gushing from his wound, Natsu stood on his hand and crunched quickly before slamming his forehead into Sasuke's. Sword horn. Sasuke's eyes were glazed and white, and he swayed and fell, blood dripping from beneath his headband, but Natsu leapt off him and knelt to stay upright. Winner. Natsu Dragneel, Genma went on. The crowd erupted. Boom. Gaara approached Natsu as a massive cloud of dust began to descend. Blood. Give me your blood. As sand flew out of his gourd and toward Natsu, he yelled. The cage box. Kankuro and Temari were taken aback. Sarutobi got to his feet and said, What's this about, cage? Foolish sensei. The cage grabbed Sarutobi and put a kunai to his throat as he began to laugh, vanished, and then reappeared behind Sarutobi. Orochimaru. They turned to see Makarov holding them when a giant hand seized both of them. Laxus was surrounded by his group. The arena. Natsu was perplexed because he had defeated Sasuke and knew that someone he had never met was attempting to kill him. He leapt to get out of the sand, landed, and grabbed his stomach while his wound continued to bleed. Gaara grinned and said, Come on. Let me kill you, he said, raising his hand to send more sand in Natsu's direction. Halfway through, the sand split and went in Sasuke's direction. He turned to Gaara, the sand floating around him like smoke, and Natsu ran and grabbed him. Natsu thought, I would be kicking his ass if I wasn't in this shape. Natsu, what did you do to annoy him? Asked Happy, who flew beside him. Happy asked. I'm not sure, Natsu stated, but whatever it is, I didn't do it. People, except for the fairies, everyone in the stadium went to sleep. The arena. Are you okay, Natsu? Asked Wendy and Carla as they approached from behind. Wendy inquired. He said, Yeah, but if you could stop the bleeding, I'd be better off. Wendy put her hands on his stomach, and they glowed. New flesh began to cover the wound, which quickly healed. Wendy retreated because she needed to regain the power she had expended on healing Natsu. So the Maiden of the Sky has healed you, Gaara said with a laugh. Sand bounded toward Natsu and Wendy, saying, Now drop the dead weight and fight me seriously. Scarf, was all that was going through Natsus's mind as he dropped Sasuke and came running towards Gaara. Natsu leapt and his fingers touched his scarf as he dodged more sand and saw it a few feet behind Gaara. He forced his legs to move faster and past Gaara. Sand leapt from the earth and encircled Natsu's waist, his hand gripping his scarf firmly. Fire Dragon Talon. The sand column turned to glass when Natsu kicked it, and when he kicked it again, it broke and released him. He is truly strong, and I'll enjoy killing him, Gaara scowled, noting that no one had ever turned his sand to glass. People. After the genjutsu was cast, many ninja woke up, and Sakura witnessed Kakashi, Guy, Lee, and a few other leaf ninja engaged in combat with sand and sound ninja. Kakashi blocked a kunai and uttered the words, Sakura, wake up the others and help protect the villagers. Sakura nodded and got to work. Fairy Tale. Ice Make. Bringer of Ice. Gray yelled as two ice swords appeared in his hands and he began to swing at his opponent, cutting open his chest. Water Lock. As she threw her opponents around and trapped them in water, Juvia remarked, gathering more adversaries. Open the Lion's Gate. Lucy yelled as she swung Loke's key, and a man with light brown hair, a black suit, a red tie, and glasses emerged in a golden light. I haven't seen Lucy in a while. Regulus's light. With a gleam in his eye and a smile on his face, Loke punched his opponent and remarked, "No one is laying a hand on my Lucy." His hands were glowing like two tiny suns. In her Heaven's Wheel armor, Erza was taking down adversaries. "You all lack the warrior's spirit." As she defeated another adversary, she yelled. To keep the villagers safe, Mirajan and Gildart's team relocated with them. "Man, this is boring," Gildarts said, idly disassembling enemies one by one. "At least they're still alive." The arena. While Natsu and Happy fight Gaara alone, Wendy was carrying Sasuke, who was being carried by Carla to Myra's group. Wendy dropped Sasuke off and went back to the stadium. Gaara and Natsu, "How can I hit this guy?" Natsu asked, his breathing rapid. Happy sidestepped the sand tendrils, flew in his direction, and released Natsu, who jumped back and got to his feet after pulling his arm back and punching Gaara's sand, which was protecting him. "That's all. I'm going to stop now." As he spoke, Natsu's fist burst into flames, but they weren't his typical flames. Instead, they were a blend of black and orange crimson. He charged toward Gaara, whose sand encased him in a sphere. He slammed his fist through the sand, saying, "Fire Dragon God." Iron Fist. Time slowed, and Natsu pulled his arm out, his flames flickering and vanishing as Temari and Kenkuro leapt from the cage box and landed beside them. Gaara, he realized, what is this? It's warm and watery, it's blood. The dome collapsed, exposing Gaara, who had black flames burning his clothes and bleeding from his left shoulder. He gave Natsu a look. "Hua!" He screamed in pain, grabbed his head, and his right arm and a small portion of his face were gradually covered in sand. "Dragneel, Natsu. Somebody wants our blood." Gaara's voice wavered as he fell, and Temari and Kenkuro grabbed him before running away. "Happy, let's follow them." "Aye sir." Happy, Lily, and Naruto ran in Natsu's direction. "Hold on, take me with you," Naruto said, and the three turned to face him. Lily grinned and seized him, and the four of them took off, following Natsu's nose. The cage box. A midget with the ability to change his body size like an Akamichi was holding Orochimaru's former sensei. "Orochimaru, why are you here?" Sarutobi asked. Orochimaru declared, "I'm going to destroy the leaf." "I apologize, Hokage," Makarov said, tightening his hold. "However, I refuse to let him go." Four ninja then emerged. One defeated Evergreen and Bixlow, two defeated Freed, and the fourth attempted to defeat Laxus but was completely defeated. The other three used Earth-style jutsu to pull Orochimaru and Sarutobi underground and out of Makarov's grasp while Laxus was distracted, and the fourth shunned away. A long way from the stadium. As the other four ninja formed a barrier, Orochimaru released Sarutobi, who threw off his cage robes to reveal his battle gear and said, "You won't destroy the leaf, and as its cage, I'll beat you. A decrepit old fossil like you will beat me." Orochimaru chuckled and made a series of hand gestures. Summoning jutsu. A third coffin begins to emerge, but chains emerge and pull it back down. "I should have known I couldn't use him," Orochimaru scowls. "Okay, it was worth a shot." The two casket lids fall, exposing the gray and cracked bodies and armor of the Shadaime and Nadaime Hokages, Hashirama and Tobirama Senju. "You brought him and his brother back using my sensei's own jutsu," Sarutobi exclaimed. He yelled, "This jutsu is prohibited." When the caskets vanish and the two cage are left standing, Orochimaru ignores him. They open their eyes and notice Sarutobi. "Hey, is that you, Hiruzen?" However, Tobirama remarked, "You're so old." "The two of you passed away several decades ago," Sarutobi said, nodding. "The Yondaime was even selected for me." "Well, then why aren't the Yondaime here instead of you?" Hashirama inquired. 13 years ago, the Kyuubi attacked, and he sealed it into a baby using the Reaper Death Seal, Sarutobi said, closing his eyes. "Consequently, I was reinstated as Sandaime." Enough nostalgia. Orochimaru pulled out two kunai with talismans and pushed one into each of the former cage's heads, saying, "You two have work to do." Their armor was restored, the cracks vanished, and their skin instantly regained its color. Orochimaru laughed and remarked, "And now, you will fall at the hands of the founding fathers of the leaf." A voice said, "I don't think so." Searching for the source, Orochimaru exclaimed, "What the?" Bam! A blow to the chin sent Orochimaru flying, and he turns to see Gajeel emerge from his own shadow. "I'm glad I stepped into your shadow. The fight's going to be on an even playing field," he said as he approached Sarutobi and assumed his fighting stance. The stadium. Carla and Wendy saw that Natsu and the others had gone off to follow Gaara. I'm going to follow Natsu, Lucy. He will require assistance in combating that individual. Hold on, I'll accompany you. Carla took off as quickly as she could, but at a slower pace than usual, and Wendy grinned and took her hand. Throughout the village, clan heads were engaged in combat with sand and sound, while the fairies and other leaf ninja defended the villagers. Mira was blasting enemies from a distance while in her Satan takeover form. While she drank her alcohol, Kana used her card magic to build a small barrier to keep the villagers and herself safe. Levi and Lizana did their best to console the kids. Natsu. As Natsu and Naruto accelerated toward Gaara and his brother, Natsu declared, "When we catch them, we are going to kick their asses." "You got that right," Naruto smiled in response. With a smile, Natsu said, "Faster, happy." "Aye, sir." Konoha was a chaotic place. The fairies were supporting the leaf, who were being attacked by ninja from the sound and sand. The stadium. Makarov let out a sigh. How did it get so bad? The person who threw the kunai was knocked out when Makarov swung his hand backwards and expanded his arm after dodging one. After leaving to fight, Laxus remarked, how he couldn't let the others get in the action and watching an old fossil wasn't fun. Makarov had remained with the Thunder Legion members. Another section of the stadium. Gray yelled, "Ice make, geyser," and froze his rivals. Panting, Gray remarked, "Man, they just keep coming." Juvia exclaimed, "Water slicer." "You were right, my beloved." 3 enemy ninja were sliced through by her attack. Juvia and Gray were engaged in a back-to-back fight. 5 men replaced them after they killed an enemy. Gray looked at Juvia. He threw off his shirt and said, "We have to do that spell, Juvia." This caused some of the female ninja to get minor nosebleeds. Juvia gave a nod. They moved into a dancing position after she took his hands. As they intensified their magic, Juvia's water erupted and was frozen by Gray. All of the opponents were frozen as the water spread throughout the crowd. Juvia and Gray parted ways and gasped. They always lost a lot of magic when they conducted a unison raid. Juvia's legs began to water as she said, "My beloved, can we take a break?" "That's not a problem, but it's not a good idea," Gray remarked while sitting nude on the bench. Juvia gave a little start. She blurted out, "Gray is sitting on me, naked," as her face flushed and steam emerged from her ears. An additional area of the stadium. Equipped it. Lightning Empress armor. Erza exclaimed as he reappeared wearing fresh armor after being engulfed in light. A now dead sound ninja exclaimed, "What the? Is this a type of transformation?" "Gah!" Before Erza's spear sliced and electrocuted him to death. Swinging her spear, she said, "You are all weak. Where is your spirit?" "Somewhere." No enemy was able to get past Mira and the others defending the civilians. While maintaining her barrier, Kana sat down idly and took out a small flask. Gildarts was walking around idly, and Mira was keeping an eye out for the enemy. Levi and Lizana conversed with the lonesome kids. Carla, Lucy, and Wendy. "Carla, go faster, please. We are in a hurry." Wendy said the most courteous thing. Carla screamed, "I can't fly faster carrying you both." Lucy laughed. When Carla shouted, "And you need to lose some weight," Lucy went limp and sank into a little rut. Natsu and Naruto. After Gaara and his siblings, the 4 raced. Despite the pain in his brain, Natsu was thinking. Although it wasn't anything significant, Naruto was engaged in a similar activity, about how he could aid in the battle against Gaara. Gaara. In an attempt to gain as much distance as they could, Temari and Kankuro leapt from tree to tree. Gaara shifted and began to move. He fell and landed on a branch after Temari and Kankuro released him. His face and arm were covered in more sand. Sarutobi and Gajil. Hashirama demonstrated a special set of hand signals. Wood release. Great forest technique. Wood flew out in Gajil's direction as he thrust his arm forward. Summoning jutsu. After being struck in the face, pieces of Hashirama's face fell off and turned to ash. He struck the ground with his attack. Orochimaru understood. "You called Enma at the perfect time, Sarutobi-sensei." Enma went back to join Sarutobi. "So, you're going to finally defeat him, Hiruzen?" he inquired. Sarutobi gave a nod. Enma changes into a gigantic staff and declares, "Even though he was my student, I will kill him, no matter what." After catching Enma, Sarutobi assumed his stance. Tobirama moves forward as Hashirama, fully recovered, stands up. Water style. Water dragon bullet. Tobirama's mouth opened and a dragon of water blasted out. Sarutobi and Gajil escaped the assault. Wood release secret technique. Nativity of a world of trees. Hashirama concluded his signs. Sarutobi was seized by trees that leapt out of the earth. Iron dragon sword, exclaimed Gajil as he swung his arm and cut through Sarutobi's tree. After landing, Sarutobi moved in the direction of Orochimaru. The two former Kage leapt ahead of him. Enma reached out and was knocked out of his path by Sarutobi's swing. Orochimaru smiled. I admit, for an old man, you still got it, sensei. Natsu and Naruto. Sniff. Sniff. Natsu declared, happy, they are just up ahead. Panther Lily and Happy dodged the shot that Sand fired at them. So, you both followed me. Great, now I don't have to look for you myself. Someone said. When they turn around, they see Gaara, who doesn't even look human. He was swooshing back and forth with a claw and tail made of sand. One eye had turned pale yellow instead of green, and his face was half covered in sand. Natsu punched his fists and said, okay, I'm going to kick your ass for earlier, you sand freak. Gaara laughed, and then she started laughing uncontrollably. You think you can stop me and mother? Well, let's see who's stronger. Naruto swallowed. Lily saw this and said, hey, let me down and go get someone else. Lily put Naruto on a tree branch a short distance away from Gaara's siblings after nodding. Lily turned and walked away. Naruto turned in Gaara's direction. Alright, you freak, we are going to beat the living hell out of you. Natsu smiled. Naruto trailed behind him as he charged, his fists flaming. The stadium, Makarov size. He got up and surveyed the area. The sand and sound were opposed by Leaf and Fairy. Hugh, I didn't want to use this. His hands were raised above one another. Slowly, a sphere-shaped golden light emerged. With his hands clasped together, Makarov whispered, Fairy Law. The village was filled with golden light. The enemy ninja fell, dead or unconscious, one by one. Every fairy tale member acknowledged this and grinned. Let's return to Natsu and Naruto. The dragon and fox both gasped. Gaara had advanced to a more powerful level. Everything except his feet was covered in sand. He said, come on. Is that all you got? When Happy's magic ran out, Natsu was paired with Naruto. He leaned forward and yelled, no it's not. We are just getting started. His body was consumed by fire, and lightning flashed all around him. Steam rose from his mouth as he said, lightning flame dragon mode. Naruto said, same with me, as the Kyuubi's chakra engulfed his body. Kankuro and Tamari stated, Gaara shouldn't be left alone with them. I know, but as he is we can't even talk to him without risking death. Kankuro replied. At this point, Wendy and Lucy landed with Lily and Carla. Tamari grabbed her fan as Kankuro dropped his package. After revealing his puppet, Crow, Kankuro declared, I'll take blonde, you take the little girl. Tamari signed. Wind style. Wind cutter jutsu. She said as she opened her fan. Her fan sent a huge gust of wind blades in Wendy's direction. Open gate of the scorpion. Dust storm shot. A massive wall of dust and sand blocked the wind. As Lucy and Scorpio assisted Wendy, she grinned. But when Kankuro launched an attack, it fell. When he yelled, poison mist hell, 100 continuous firing. Crow moved and fired a tiny purple ball. Around Lucy and the others, it exploded. Senbon was launched into the cloud by the crow's arms breaking off. The cloud was filled with the sound of metal hitting metal. Hugh, even if the Senbon missed, the poison will kill them. There was the sound of inhalation. Wendy was inhaling the poison when the poison cloud disappeared, and her sleeves started to tear from her hands to her elbows. Her hair rose, flickering blue and purple, and she sagged slightly. Her nails were claws, and the skin on her bare arms was now light pink scales. Wendy breathed in and out, her breath trailing poison. She raised her head, her teeth sharper but otherwise unchanged. You now face the poison sky dragon slayer. And thanks for the meal. Lucy, Tamari, and Kankuro gazed in shock. Wendy's hair completely turned purple as they looked, and she stepped forward. She looks at the siblings and says, please don't fight. Go now and don't fight. I don't like fighting, not even a little. Kankuro scratched. So you can do what? Go and hurt our little brother. This surprised Wendy and Lucy, but they didn't give it much thought. Tamari moved to the front. She spread blood on her fan after opening it and biting her thumb. Wind release. Great sickle weasel jutsu. A tiny weasel with a sickle and an eye patch emerged. Tamari swung her fan, directing the side-wielding animal and a tremendous gust of wind in Wendy and Lucis' direction. Open gate of the Golden Bull. With an axe in hand, Taurus emerged and deflected the approaching scythe. He smirks and declares, "No one will lay a hand on Miss Lucy's smoking hot bod." The small weasel began to laugh after saying something in Weaselnese. "Huh, where?" Taurus asked, surveying the area. "Gah." Taurus closed the gate after the weasel attacked and sliced him. Lucy caught Temeri's eye. "What are these creatures you summon? They aren't normal." Lucy spoke before Wendy could say anything. "They are my celestial spirits. And don't call them creatures." Lucy's eyes were frightening. Wendy put her signature. "Lucy, I'll take on the puppet master as you take on the fan lady." Lucy took out Loke's key and said, "You got it, Wendy." Wendy faced Kankuro, who had Crow poised for combat. Wendy remarked, "I see you give me no choice." She unwinded before racing ahead alongside Kankuro. She put her hand to his. Kankuro cried out in agony, "Og, what the hell did you do?" As the poison sky dragon, just a single gentle touch will inject a person with poison. The more poison that is injected, the less chance they have to survive. Wendy responded. She dislocated Kankuro's shoulder with a punch after drawing her fist back. Sarutobi and Gajiel. Gajiel was breathing heavily in his iron shadow form. "Man, they're tough for corpses. However, that does not preclude us from winning." As Sarutobi repelled the Shadaim and Nadaim, Gajiel disappeared into the darkness. Orochimaru observed his old sensei's struggles with amusement. "You're open, Ga." Gajiel came out of the shadows and plunged into the water, punching Orochimaru in the face. Orochimaru leaned forward and coughed up his sword, Kusanagi, saying, "That's right. He can use shadows, but he can still be injured." He whirled and thrust his sword into a shadow that was approaching. Holding his bleeding shoulder, Gajiel leapt out. Orochimaru declared, "My sword can pierce through everything, including shadows." Gajiel winced. Natsu and Naruto. Gaara was giggling. He enjoyed slapping Natsu and Naruto about like rag dolls. Natsu continued to use the electricity to intensify his reactions while in his lightning flame mode. "This guy is tough, man. It just keeps coming, regardless of how much sand I turn into glass." Abruptly, Naruto thrust a kunai up Gaara's sandy posterior. Secret hidden leaf finger jutsu. 1,000 years of death. Bam! It knocked Naruto back. Boom, boom. Gaara's sand was unable to shatter the kunai when it exploded. With a shout of, "Hammer of the lightning flame dragon," Natsu leapt forward. He struck Gaara's face with his fist, melting much of his sand. The pink-haired one attacked and hardened the sand, while the blonde attacked where the defense was weakest. Gaara got back up as more sand piled on top of him and some of it fell off his face. "As thanks for entertaining me, I'll show you. My mother." He was covered in sand at this point, and his size kept increasing. A minute later, they were confronted by a gigantic tanuki with pale yellow eyes and a single tail. Gaara was on its forehead, with his legs inside and the rest outside. Naruto took a step forward. "I got this one, buddy." He made some hand signals and bit his tongue. Summoning jutsu. Puff, sup. Name's Gamakichi. There was a tiny orange toad in front of them. Naruto said, "Damn, please return from where you came from. I did not use enough chakra." Gamakichi nodded and vanished. He did it again, using the chakra of the Kyuubi. Puff. Gamabunta said, "What do you want, runt?" He turned to look. Oh, if it isn't Shukaku the raccoon dog. Standing atop Gamabunta's head were Naruto and Natsu. "Chief Toad, we need your help." Gamabunta took a puff from his pipe. "I don't see why not, but after this you are going to get me a bunch of sake." "What? I'm not old enough to drink. I can't." "When this is over, come with me to Fairy Tale and you can have all the sake you want," Natsu said, grinning as he tapped Gamabunta's head, causing the toad's eyes to look at him. "Deal." In addition to making a few hand gestures, Gaara said, "Play possum jutsu." His chakra surged, his body slumped, and his pale yellow eyes grew larger and brighter. He turns to Gamabunta and says, "Yes, I'm free. Here I come, bitches. But first, I'll kill you three. Wind style. Air bullet," he exclaimed, puffing up his chest and slamming an arm into it. Gamabunta leapt to his feet and yelled, "Water bullet, water style." Water sprayed everywhere as the two attacks collided. After drawing his blade, Gamabunta landed directly on top of Shukaku, severing one of his arms before leaping away. A miniature version of Shukaku was created as the sand from the arm fell and then started to rise. As his tiny clone leapt forward and shoved Gamabunta away, knocking Natsu off Gamabunta's head, Shukaku chuckled, "Ha ha ha, now you have to deal with twice the trouble. You humans are so weak," Shukaku said as he approached Natsu. "You believe that you are at the top of the hierarchy at all times. Nevertheless, we tailed beasts are genuinely superior." Shukaku sent Natsus's body underground with a slam of his fist. "Natsu," Naruto yelled, "for now, forget about him. Before we can check on him, we have to deal with these two beasts," Gamabunta remarked, glancing at Shukaku and his clone. Something tiny, so tiny that the two giant creatures were unaware of it, went through the opening leading to Natsu. Underground cemetery. Natsu woke up painfully, and when he was fully awake, he went to feel his face, but his arm never appeared. Natsu looked and saw his arm on top of a huge grave with a broken arm bone. Calmly sitting up, Natsu sniffed to find his scent, but instead he caught someone else's, one he hadn't smelled in months. "I remember you, with Sarutobi and Gajeel. How was that to you?" Standing in front of a kneeling Gajeel, Orochimaru declared, "Kusanagi can pierce anything and it will kill you both." As he stood up, blood streaming down his arm, Gajeel thought, he's not kidding. "If it hits a vital, it's over. So what if your little toy pierces me in my iron? Even if I die, I will never give up." The Shadaime finished a set of seals and slammed his hands on the ground as Orochimaru laughed and raised his hand. Behind Gajeel, a huge tree grew, and as it did, roots sprang out and seized him, pulling him into the tree trunk. Beside his head, a kunai with markings on the handle embedded itself. Ration slice flying. As he materialized in front of Gajeel and cut open his chest, Tobirama yelled. Gajeel screamed, his blood thinning. Somewhere else with the kids and villagers. Levi's chest ached, and she collapsed to one knee, gasping for air. "Levi, what's the matter?" With concern in her tone, Lizana inquired. Levi shed a few tears and said, "It's Gajeel, he's hurt, and badly." Returning to the others, Gajeel was panting heavily, his gray-silver scales and a shallow, non-fatal cut were visible through the ripped shirt. As the scales covered his body, he managed to say, "Damn good thing I protected myself." Scuffed Orochimaru, "It is of little importance if you live now or die later, my plan will succeed." Jutsu Shuriken Shadow Clone. Hundreds of shuriken landed where they had stood, and Sarutobi landed among them, freeing Gajeel as the three enemies leapt out of the way. He turned to Orochimaru and said, "Thanks, old man. Hey, can you force him to drop that sword?" he inquired. "I think I can pull it off. However, why?" With a curious expression on his face, Sarutobi asked. Gajeel's grinned and said, "I'm going to eat it." After staring, Sarutobi started laughing and said, "Okay, let's get started." With Carla, Wendy, and Lucy. Wendy's poison seeped into Kenkuro's body through his clothing, causing his body to twitch and hurt as he fell. "I apologize." Wendy turns to face Lucy and Virgo fighting Tamari and says, "I don't like to hurt people, but I'll protect my friends." Tamari swung her fan and declared, "It doesn't matter how many of those things you summon, you're still going to lose." "Virgo," Lucy yelled. With a faint red glow in her eyes, Virgo crossed her arm and sank into the ground, saying, "Yes, princess." Tamari swung her fan and knocked Lucy down, saying, "Seems your partner abandoned you." "You may think that." "What the?" was all she could say before being dragged head and shoulders above the ground as shackles leapt out of the ground and grabbed her ankles. Behind her, Virgo emerged and said, "I have fulfilled your request, princess. Can I now be punished?" With a tone of desire in her voice, Virgo inquired. "You did well, so thanks for your help." Lucy grinned broadly as Tamari approached Virgo and petted her head after her perspiration stopped and she turned to face Lucy, who was laughing softly. Virgo said, bowing, "Your wish is my command, princess," and walked away. Wendy touched Tamari's head, and Lucy turned to see it. "Hang on, you'll poison her," Lucy yelled. Tamari closed her eyes and jerked her head back. "It was a tiny amount of my poison that causes paralysis." Wendy approached her vanquished opponent and touched the spots where she had struck him, her hands glowing pink rather than the customary green. "I better draw out the poison from him before he dies," she said. Kenkuro's body tensed, then relaxed as she healed him. "Oh, Wendy, where did you find out?" Lucy inquired. "What? My poisonous form." Seeing Gajeel and Natsu use second elements after the entire dragon attack made me feel excluded. I came across a poisonous lizard while on a mission. Wendy inhaled deeply as she completed healing Kankuro. After giving it some serious thought, I provoked it into releasing its poison, and I aided gaining control over poison and the ability to create many different poisons that only I can heal. Lucy had said, "Oh, I see. Lucy, Carla, Wendy." A panther lily flies toward the three of them as they look up. He grabbed Lucy and took off, followed by the others, saying, "No time to talk, come with me now." Sarutobi and Gajil. The wind blew the leaves of the Shadime's trees, but none of the 5 men moved, waiting to see who would go first. Rapidly moving, Sarutobi stomped his foot, sending tiles flying. Roof tile shuriken. Roar. Iron dragon. They easily ducked as the weapons raced toward the Konoha trader and its former cage, but as they passed them, they exploded, exposing a few shadow clones, 2 of which grabbed hold of the Shadime and Nadime. A series of signs were performed by the others. Reaper Death Seal. Set. The 2 spoke as the Shinigami, a huge shadow creature with red beads in its hand and a blade in its mouth, materialized behind them. Knowing what Sarutobi was doing, Orochimaru pointed Kusanagi at him and extended the blade, shouting, "Oh no you don't, you old fool." Seal. Reaper Death Seal. The Shinigami pulled its blade from its jaws as the 2 clones' hands shot through their stomachs, entering the cage and yanking out their souls. In a single, powerful motion, the Shinigami sliced through the cage's souls, turning their bodies to ash and revealing dead genin that were attached to its blade. As it brought the blade to its mouth, the souls entered and the Shinigami swallowed them. As it approached, Kusanagi's blade pierced flesh. Sarutobi cried out in agony, but it came from the seal that was now on his abdomen. With Kusanagi's blade in his hand, Gajil said, "Oh, thanks for the meal." Orochimaru tried to pull the blade back, understanding what Gajil was attempting to do, but it only retracted when he brought it to his mouth and started eating the blade, leaving only a nod 2.5 inches of blade remaining. He was surrounded by Gajil's magic. Oh, yes, that was quite a substantial meal. He turned to face Orochimaru, took a stance, and uttered the words, "Dragon Slayer's secret art." His arm glowed and started to transform into a massive, wide sword blade when it was finished. For the first time in years, Orochimaru stared in wonder and terror. Iron God Sword, Karma Demon. Gajil slammed his arm into the floor and yelled. Tiles and smoke flew everywhere, and Gajil collapsed as it cleared because he had used up so much of his magic. He caught his breath and said, "It's over." His mouth opened and stretched, and another Orochimaru slipped out and rose as soon as he finished speaking. Orochimaru's head shot out of the debris with his neck outstretched. A lot of damage was caused by that attack. With a hateful expression on his face, he said, "So, Iron Shadow Slayer, if I never learned this trick, I would be dead. Where can I get a new password, do you think?" He threw the shattered sword in front of him and yelled. Sarutobi suddenly materialized and seized him, the Shinigami reaching through him to seize Orochimaru's soul. Reaper. Death Seal. He exhaled and coughed up blood. The Shinigami gradually withdrew, exposing Orochimaru's arms. "A crazy old man like you doesn't have enough chakra left to seal me, I thought." Orochimaru exclaimed. "Yes, you're correct. No, he doesn't. However, I do." When the 2 turned to see Gajil's hand raised and facing Sarutobi, a green magic circle floated toward him and entered his body, increasing his chakra as it did so. With a smile, he said, "Thank you, young man." Smirking, Gajil said, "No prob, old man." Reaper Death Seal. Seal. Said Sarutobi, turning around and looking into Orochimaru's yellow eyes. He yelled. Sarutobi let go and fell backwards, his hearing fading as he saw Orochimaru shout at him, and he landed with a calm expression on his face. The Shinigami sliced a soul once more, but only took Orochimaru's arms. The Sound 4 broke through the barriers and moved to Orochimaru's side as he writhed in pain and his arms began to solidify. As he fell forward and was caught and carried away, he said, "We are retreating." All the residents of Konoha. Everyone in the village was heartbroken, and tears fell for no apparent reason. Sarutobi and Gajil. "It was a pleasure to fight with you, old man," Gajil said, staring at Sarutobi's body as his eyes began to close. Alongside Naruto and Natsu, Shukaku chuckled while Gamabunta was battered by his clone. "Hey, kid, where's the Kyuubi's chakra? Take him out," he said, "I want to show him who is stronger." Gamabunta was punched against a small mountain by his clone. "It's time, Chief Toad." Naruto said, "We can accomplish this. You can say it more easily." The play possum jutsu would be cancelled out if we could just get close enough to awaken his Jinchuriki, Gamabunta stated. Cloning in for another blow, Shukaku's clone drew its fist through it and pulled it back. Halfway through the attack, flames appeared, and Natsu, with his back to Naruto and Gamabunta, assumed a position with his left arm arched around his head, resembling Whitebeard from One Piece. Natsu's broken arm flailed in the wind as his fist struck the clone's enormous hand, causing a tiny explosion where they were touching. The clone burst into glass shards as the smoke fell. With his wings disappearing, Natsu lowered himself in front of Gamabunta. He yelled, "Hey, Naruto." "What?" Naruto answered. "I'll fight him, and when I create an opening, wake this bastard up." "How will you accomplish that, though? He is many times larger than you," Gamabunta said. Natsu turned, exposing what appeared to be dragon scales on his forearms and above and below his eyes. He said, "Do as I say, or we both die." Gamabunta and Naruto both nodded. Natsu faced Shukaku once more. "Oh, so Dragon Force was activated by the small dragon slayer. It's impressive, but not strong enough to overcome me. Unfortunately, you got me fired up when you destroyed my clone." Natsu raised his left arm, revealing a huge magic circle that was different from his usual one. The center resembled a flaming skull, while the outer rings were yellow with lightning bolts. The inner rings had golden flames, the third had black flames, and the fourth had a combination of lightning and flames. "Ignite in the present moment, spark from the past. Join me in battle, Atlas Flame, and engulf my body in your flames." His body blazed with fire as he completed the incantation, extended and grew larger, and a roar erupted from it as it formed. Everybody in the village, when Konoha, fairies, sand, and sound stopped fighting, they heard a monstrous cry and turned to see a huge dragon of solid flames emerge from the forest in front of Shukaku. Atlas Flame had been roused and was prepared to battle. Outside the village, somewhere, as soon as Atlas's feet touched the ground, the trees turned to ashes. Atlas stretched his limbs and remarked, "It feels nice to have a body again, I haven't moved in ages." Shukaku's head came up. "Oh, snap, Atlas Flame, haven't seen your fiery face in about 400 years. Last we spoke you spouted some shit about protecting a village." Atlas looked over at Shukaku. "Indeed, it has been a long time, but I'm not Atlas Flame." As the sand from his clone reformed his arm, Shukaku questioned, "If you're not Atlas, then who the hell are you?" "I'm not here to talk." "So," Atlas said, spreading his wings and igniting more trees with his hot breath. "No, we fight." Atlas's wings flapped as he soared into the air, pushing hot air. Atlas yelled, "Fire Dragon Wing Attack," with a hint of Natsu's voice. Shukaku opened his mouth wide as the flames engulfed him. Little spheres of blue and red materialized, gradually merging into a gigantic purple ball the size of Shukaku's stomach. Tailed Beast Bomb. His mouth released a huge projectile that was aimed directly at Atlas. Knowing that his body of fire could not withstand the blow, Atlas took it. The sky was covered in smoke. Shukaku chuckled, "Now I know for sure you're not Atlas." Whenever I used that move, his body would separate, and the bomb would go through him, and he would recover, unharmed. Atlas emerged. He lowered himself back to the ground and remarked, "It seems that while I was away, I have forgotten how to fight. But that can change." "Impossible. I know what he did. He separated a part of his soul and sent it here for that little dragon slayer brat. But since you are just a fraction of what he used to be, you are not as fast or as strong as you were 400 years ago." Shukaku was addressing him. Atlas burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha ha, you think that I just showed up here, without thinking this through." Atlas lunged forward and struck Shukaku in the head. As Atlas Flame wrapped his wings around Shukaku and increased the heat, he declared, "I am Atlas Flame, the fire dragon of hell. My hell fire burns everything, including your absolute defense." Shukaku took a breath. Wind style. Drilling air bullet. Atlas's flames grew stronger as a result, but they also created a hole in his body. Shukaku quickly transformed and passed through it, reassembling behind him. "Sand burial," he yelled, and the forest echoed with the voices of Shukaku and Gaara. Atlas was encircled and covered in sand. Shukaku began preparing another tailed beast bomb. "This is going to kill him," Shukaku reflected. Bam! Atlas's tail leapt out of the ground and pierced Shukaku's head, disrupting his focus and putting an end to the bomb's construction. Atlas escaped the clutches of the sands. With a grunt, his tail threw Shukaku several miles from the village and heaved him over him. Atlas took off once more. He looked at Naruto and Gamabunta. Follow me, quickly. You are needed for this plan to work. After saying that, he left. Gamabunta got to his feet after he had sufficiently recovered both physically and spiritually. Naruto was barely hanging on as he turned and followed Atlas. Within the village, after surviving fairy law, the majority of the enemy ninja were apprehended and put in jail. When the civilians were permitted to look beyond their hiding places, they witnessed a massive mass of sand and fire engaging in combat before they were forced to flee. Alongside Makarov, Makarov watched the toad and dragon follow the spirit of the sand. He let out a deep sigh. Natsu, please come back, no matter what, he thought. Alongside Wendy and Lucy, after carrying the two women through the forest, Lily and Carla arrived at the enormous fire pit that Atlas had left behind. What the? Their fight wasn't very long, and yet they did this much damage. Lily replied. Wendy sniffed the air. She had returned to normal soon after healing Kankuro. Whatever happened, that mass of fire had to be Natsu. Lucy gave a nod. She said, so how do we follow him? Wendy just gestured. Lucy went with her arm. She saw enormous frog footholes and a lengthy trail of burning trees as she turned. Lucy rubbed the back of her head and stuck her tongue out, saying, oh, my bad. I did not see that. Lily laughed, Carla scowled, and Wendy grinned. In the hopes of arriving in time, the two exceeds set out in the direction of their friends. Juvia and Gray. A few more enemy survivors were frozen by Gray. He swung his necklace, formed a hammer, and slammed it into an adversary, asking, damn, how much more of these guys are there? With a hint of desire in her voice, Juvia exclaimed, Water Slicer. I don't know, my beloved. But if I don't help you, I want to be punished. Oh God no, exclaimed Gray. He faced the direction of the last fire he had seen. Man, I sure hope that Natsu isn't dead. He replied. As she held onto Gray's arm, Juvia remarked, Natsu isn't that weak to lose. You know that firsthand, my love. Alongside Erza, Erza had just completed taking out her group of adversaries. In order to destroy Earth-style pillars, she was donning the giant's armor. Yes, I do hope that everyone is doing well. If I lose someone important to me again, I won't be able to recover, she thought, putting her heart's crew's armor back on. She turned to face the region where the dragon's roar could be heard. I'm hoping Natsu wins quickly. Konoha is several miles away. The forest plain was where Shukaku landed and skidded. Before long, he got up and looked around. Avoid seeing them. A huge ball of fire burst forth and was on its way to him. Shukaku's shield. A gigantic dummy of Shukaku materialized and was struck. The shield melted into glass and held up. Shukaku searched all sides but was unable to locate Atlas. Fire Dragon's sword horn. Shukaku's head ached like hell. Gaara's body jerked violently. Atlas touched down in front of him. He calmly said, come on. I know that did not really hurt you. Shukaku burst out laughing. Shukaku began to laugh and teasingly said, you're right. It didn't. As I said earlier, you are much weaker than before. Atlas let out a sigh. You were right, I am several times weaker than before. But I know how to give myself a jolt. Shukaku ceased to chuckle. Atlas began to amass magic. Ah. Shukaku became blinded by the sudden burst of yellow. He was astounded by what he saw when he opened his eyes. Atlas's body had changed. His enormous wing had shrunk, and a new pair of wings had appeared above his old ones, but they were much smaller and composed of lightning. Lightning mixed with his flames along his back. His claws had turned into fire and lightning. There were lightning spikes at the end of his tail. On his forehead was a long lightning horn. Shukaku exclaimed, no, it can't be, with astonishment. Atlas drooled fire and lightning from his mouth and said, that's right. You should be scared, of the lightning flame dragon of hell. Shukaku's mouth parted. Tailed beast bomb. Atlas followed suit. Lightning flame dragon roar. They launched their assaults. They both crashed and burst. In the distance, Wendy and Lucy witnessed a huge explosion. It was a combination of fire, lightning, and an unfamiliar power. It had a foreboding aura and was a dark purple color. Wendy remarked, that way Carla. I smell Natsu. With a nod, Carla took off for the area of massive destruction, followed by Lucy and Lily. Shukaku and Atlas. Shukaku moaned. The annoyance of being beaten by a puny human, not pain. This is made more difficult by his lightning flame mode. However, I relish the challenge. Shukaku peered into the sky at the ash and smoke. Atlas was hovering in midair, visible to him. You truly are superior to humans, Shukaku. Atlas replied, but, your overconfidence and pride makes you ignorant. You'll never beat humans as they are now. So why not just try to form a bond with your Jinchuriki? You shouldn't talk, Atlas. I remember you devouring humans without a care in the world. Shukaku screamed. As we fought, countless people intervened, but you ate everyone. Then you spout stuff off about protecting the very humans you despised, which led to your death. Shukaku inhaled deeply. Besides, they always kill those who are weak. This adds to their egos. They seek power to crush them, but I, even though sealed inside a Jinchuriki, haven't listened to their promises of bonds. So I'll ask, what changed your view on humans? Atlas raised his gaze to the heavens. It has been 400 years, but I remember it as if it just happened. A flashback. Atlas was recuperating from his most recent battle with Igneal, who had eaten much of his body. While tending to Igneal's superficial wounds, Grandini laughed softly. Damn it, lost again. Next time Igneal I'll win for sure. Atlas replied. They were in the ruins of an old town, and Igneal's loud laugh reverberated throughout their surroundings. Igneal grinned and added, and I'll be waiting for that day, Atlas. King Igneal, exclaimed someone. When the three dragons looked up, they saw a young fire dragon rapidly approaching them. Igneal said, what is it, Garter? Well, a human. No, a dragon slayer of shadow appeared. He has slain 4 of us and said he is looking for the leader of every dragon race. Garter replied. Igneal's gentle eyes flushed with anger. What? A dragon slayer, slaying my people. Unforgivable. Disregarding Grandini, Igneal took off, followed by Grandini and Atlas. Somewhere, a hooded man grinned at his advancement as he walked among the dead dragon. Limitations. They didn't even pose a threat. A massive ball of fire fell in front of the dragon slayer, jolting him out of his reverie. He looked up at the 3 dragons and remarked, a fire dragon roar. It reminds me of his roar. Igneal yelled, human, tell me why you have come here and slain my kin. The man removed his hood, exposing a red eye, black tattoos on the left side of his face, and white hair in a ponytail with black bangs covering his right eye. I am Rogue Cheney, the Shadow Dragon Slayer. I come from more than 400 years in the future. He was consumed like fire by shadows as he completed his sentence. His body shifted into darkness and moved in the direction of Igneal's shadow. When Atlas noticed this, he forced Igneal aside, causing Rogue to merge with his shadow. With his head peeking out of the shadow, Rogue remarked, well, even though I didn't get the Fire Dragon King, a fire dragon is still a fire dragon. You bastard, yelled Igneal. Fire Dragon Secret Art. Crimson Lotus, Phoenix Blade. A sword-shaped yellow flame sped in Rogue's direction. Fire Dragon Secret Art. Exploding Flame Blade. Igneal's attack was struck by several flame swords. As Igneal turned to face Atlas, he could see smoke rising from his mouth. Igneal asked without even glancing at Rogue, what did you do to my friend, Slayer? Dragon Possession Magic. It allows me to control as many dragon as I wish. I wanted you, Igneal. Atlas's eyes glowed green as he charged at Igneal, piercing Igneal's open wounds with his wings as they slimmed down. Igneal roared, but he took a small snack as Atlas pulled back his wings. He ate Atlas's wings. Rogue stepped out of the shadows, turned to face Igneal, and yelled. Shadow Dragon Roar. He spit out a black beam that hit Igneal squarely in the chest. The surrounding terrain was destroyed when Igneal fell to the ground. Grandini flew to Igneal because she could take no more. As she began to heal Igneal, she built a barrier. Weakling, I would be happy to kill you too. Rogue replied, but, you both have someone waiting for you in the future. Let's go, Atlas Flame. Rogue leapt onto Atlas's back as he took flight. Crocus Castle, X784. Atlas told Laxus, your little sparks won't be able to affect me, little man. Laxus tightened his jaw. Laxus. The man raised his head. Happy and Natsu were flying. Natsu screamed, drooling profusely, this one is mine. He landed on Atlas and began to eat Atlas's flames after Happy released him. Hey, get off me you little bastard. Atlas recalled a comfortable sensation. His mind flashed to an image of Igneal devouring his fire. Finish the flashback. I won't spoil it for people who haven't seen it yet or bore those who have. Atlas gave Shukaku a look. Before vanishing and reappearing behind Shukaku, Atlas declared, it was because of Natsu, I was able to break the spell and fight alongside him to protect his comrades. My time is almost up, so I'm going to end this, now. Atlas wrapped his legs around Shukaku's waist and his tail around his tail, trapping him in a full Nelson. Now, Atlas yelled. When Gamabunta landed directly in front of Shukaku, his hand seized him, and Naruto's body exploded with Kyuubi's chakra, punching Gaara in the face and making Shukaku scream. You two fairy bastards, damn you. Atlas, I'll kill you someday. Gaara was yelling about how he would kill them, trapping Naruto's legs, while Gamabunta's tongue wrapped around Naruto and dragged him away. Shukaku screamed, his eyes turning back to pale yellow. Atlas increased the heat, turning the sand into glass as Gamabunta leapt away. No, I refuse to snooze, Gaara yelled. Atlas had time to break the enormous glass tanuki after Gamabunta threw Naruto, who slammed his head into Gaara's head. Gaara landed in a tree after falling. I wish I could stay here, but I'm too weak. Gamabunta said, later, brat, before heading back to Mount Myoboku. Near Gaara, Naruto landed in a tree. Atlas's flaming body started to fade away from them, leaving a battered and bruised Natsu to fall. Naruto leapt, grabbed an unconscious Natsu, and dropped him to the ground. Gaara watched as Naruto gently set Natsu down, then lunged at him, spinning around and punching him across the face before landing against a tree as Naruto fell, both of them out. Mavis approached Gaara while they were sleeping, put her hand on his head, and went inside the seal. The seal of Shukaku. Mavis opened her eyes to find Shukaku behind a shabby wooden cage, the paper bearing the word, seal, drawn and positioned carelessly. So, I'm going to have to deal with another little piece of trash, Lady Mavis. Shukaku inquired, startled. Mavis calmly, yes, Shukaku, it's me. Shukaku was startled to see Mavis inside the seal as an unsettling silence reverberated throughout his cage. What brings you here? You can go if you came to reminisce. Shukaku uttered those words with a tone of anger. Mavis squinted. Shukaku, she shouted. Sweating sand from his face, he said as he slid back slightly. You will give me respect, and if I don't get it, Mavis's eyes darkened, I'll shrink your cage to the size of a bowl. Shukaku nodded, and as the darkness dissipated and love returned to her pale green eyes, Mavis said, good. A chair materialized, and Mavis took a seat and examined the broken cage. Shukaku bent over to look at her. Why are you here, then? He inquired. I'm going to fix your seal and, she said, gazing into his yellow eyes. Shukaku looked up to see Gaara as the water rippled and the sound of footsteps reverberated softly in the hallway. And establish equality between you and your Jinchuriki. In other words, you'll let him sleep pain-free, Mavis said. Never. I'll never be able to make friends with anyone. The only people we, the tailed beasts, will ever show kindness to are you and Old Man Sage. Shukaku frowned and said, no, Old Man Bunkuku, my first Jinchuriki, is an exception. Mavis got up and went to the barred wall with Gaara in tow. And why is that? Why are you incapable of loving other people? Gaara wanted to know, so she asked. Shukaku got up. It started after the old man died when the 9 of us were still young. A flashback. On Tenro Island, Mavis sat by herself, bored to death, gazing out to sea. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurred on the opposite side of the island, and Mavis, intrigued, wanted to see what had happened. As she arrived, 9 animals, a raccoon dog, cat, turtle, monkey, horse, slug, beetle, ox, and fox, all of which were several times larger than she was, came out of the crater with tears in their eyes. What's the matter? Am I able to assist you? Being able to speak with animals, Mavis inquired. After glancing at her, the fox yelled, human, be gone. The ox punched the fox, destroying the enormous purple ball that the fox had formed with its open mouth. What are you doing, Kurama? An old man sage Who was kind to humanity. You dare strike your older sibling, Yuki. The fox, Kurama, growled. Do you support these weaklings? Mavis saw that Kurama had 9 tails, so he swung them and slammed Yuki into the others, then jumped off the island and ran across the water, leaving them behind. What the fuck is wrong with that idiot? As the others sat around, a young Shukaku asked. Excuse me. They all turned to face Mavis, who said, are you hurt? If you are, I can heal you. They all shook their heads and grinned as best they could, saying, no, we are all quick healers. What is your name, then? Mavis. She grinned. Time skip. 1 year. What is the reason behind your departure? Did I do something wrong? Mavis uttered those words. No, You did nothing wrong, Gyuki said, holding her in his enormous hand. Kurama is the reason we have made the decision to depart. He said in a dejected tone, we sense he is causing trouble for the humans. Won't you return to pay us a visit? Mavis inquired. They all grinned and said, of course. They all went their separate ways to find Kurama after placing Mavis on the ground, and they never came back. Finish the flashback. Gaara was emotionless but sad, and Mavis nodded, remembering everything. The 8 of us were going to return, but the humans we tried to save either feared us or sealed us away, Shukaku remarked in a darkened voice. Both Gaara and Mavis nodded. The 4th cage comes next. He used a careless seal to have me sealed in his sun. And he thought that would turn both of us into weapons. This is the reason I detest people so much. They will harm their friends and family in order to gain power, according to Shukaku. However, there are some kind people out there. Just like me, Mavis remarked. But when I was sealed, you were already dead. You had no idea how difficult it was. Shukaku shouted. Gaara killed his uncle that night. Mavis touched the cage and her hand began to glow. I was there, giving the humans advice on how to calm you without killing the 2 of you. Both Gaara and Shukaku saw flashes of that night, and in each one, Mavis whispered into the ears of Ninja, enabling them to withstand Shukaku's attacks. Shukaku hung his head, embarrassed that he had inflicted such pain on Gaara. Seeing this, Mavis floated up to the seal and tore it off, destroying the cage in the process. Beyond the seal, Lily, Carla, Wendy, and Lucy were examining Naruto, Natsu, and Happy. Wendy had just begun to examine Gaara when orange chakra encircled his body, curing his wounds. Suddenly, Naruto also began to glow with orange chakra. Inside the seal again, when Naruto awoke, he saw Mavis, Shukaku, and Gaara. A malevolent chuckle erupted behind Naruto as they turned to face him. Naruto turned to face the Kyuubi's cage and said, little Shukaku is acting like a bitch to a small dead human. How pitiful. Just as Shukaku was about to respond, Mavis raised an arm. Kurama, why do you continue to treat your siblings so rudely? She inquired. The Kyuubi slammed into the cage. You little bitch, don't even dare use that name. I can only be called by my name by Old Man Sage. He yelled. Unfazed by his abrupt outburst, Mavis turned back to Shukaku and stood there. Using Naruto's seal as an example, I will repair Gaara's seal, even though I know you won't like it. Your chakra will be siphoned off and added to Gaara in this manner. Shukaku, are you cool with that? She inquired. You know I won't like it, but you are still as caring as ever, Shukaku moaned. All right, that's fine with me, he said. Does this mean I'll be able to sleep? Gaara asked as she moved forward. Yes, it does, Mavis said with a smile. Come on over here, Naruto, so I can begin the sealing. Following her instructions, Naruto stood before her, and she raised his shirt to reveal the sealing matrix, which Mavis studied for a few minutes before nodding. Gaara, Naruto, and Kurama vanished when she clapped her hands, leaving her and Shukaku by themselves. The entire room glowed white as she said, sealing replication magic. Outside, after both Jinchuriki were fully healed and their demonic chakras vanished, Wendy focused on Natsu, who was still in dragon force. Inside the seal again, when the white glow disappeared, Shukaku found himself in a new cage that resembled Kyuubi's, complete with well-placed talismans and bars. Mavis started to leave. Hold on. Thank you for everything you have done for me and my siblings, she said, turning to see Shukaku bowing. I'm positive we would have come back to see you if we hadn't been imprisoned. And I always prayed that you were all safe and sound, Mavis said with another smile. Shukaku, goodbye, we'll get together once more. She then disappeared, leaving him by himself. Beyond the seal, Mavis appeared directly in front of Gaara, and every member of Fairy Tail turned to watch her approach Natsu and smile. She put a finger to his forehead and said, the Child of Fire has awakened his dragon force and know he can be called a true dragon. Just then, Temari and Kankuro emerged, and they saw Gaara, who had woken up and was getting ready to fight. Wait, don't, the two said as they turned to face him. It's finished. Let's simply go home. Kankuro turned to face Temari. They never imagined that Gaara would simply ask them to go. Kankuro helped him up and said, all right, Gaara. Let's go. Wait a minute. Gaara turned to face the group and said, thank you, Mavis and them. And I'm hoping. The Sand siblings leapt into the trees as Gaara grinned and said, we can all be allies in the future. Following this, Natsu and Naruto started to awaken. Happy woke up and asked for a fish right away, making the group laugh without realizing Mavis was gone. After a few days, the entire village was working to rebuild the damaged structures. Erza was all for it, but the others weren't as excited. Fairy Tail had stayed behind to assist them in rebuilding. Since Natsu could hardly assist with construction, he carried wood to anyone who needed it. Using his ice maker magic, Gray assisted with the scaling, and a Konoha ice umbrella helped everyone stay cool. To prevent him from undressing in front of the kids, everyone had to adhere his panties to his waist. Gajil assisted with hammering, making nails, and creating a variety of other items that could be utilized in the construction of homes. Alongside everyone else, Erza and Laxus performed a variety of jobs. During her stay in the hospital, Wendy worked to help as many injured people recover as she could. Gildarts and Makarov attended a crucial council meeting that focused entirely on Sarutobi's replacement as Hokage 1. The other female members all played with the kids and assisted others in the village. 1 week following the invasion, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage, had a somber funeral. Everyone was there, including Makarov and his kids, with the exception of Sasuke, who was recuperating from a severe concussion and third-degree burn. Each carried a flower of a different color and had a lot on their minds. Even though he didn't express it, Gajil was deeply moved by the battle and held the Sandaime in high regard. Naruto was devastated because, aside from the Ichirakus, he had lost the grandfather figure who had raised him. Following the funeral, Natsu had remained in the village while everyone else went off to return and fix it. Rarely did he think as he gazed at the whole village. Happy landed on Natsu's shoulder after flying over. This village was attacked, but they fixed it without blaming the perpetrator. Perhaps we at Fairy Tail ought to quit causing so much damage, he pondered. Nog. A broad smile spread across his face. He looked over and saw Naruto leaving. Natsu rushed toward him. Hey, Naruto. Naruto caught sight of Natsu. He grinned at once. They had become close friends somehow. Where you going? Inquired Natsu. Going to get some ramen. Want to join me? Response. Naruto asked. It brightened Natsu's face. Okay. I hope it is just as tasty as Myra's ramen. Naruto's expression flinched. No one can top Ichiraku's when it comes to ramen. Natsu struck Naruto in the face. Wanna bet? Naruto shoved. Sure. What's the stakes? Whoever can't eat the most has to slap Erza's cake to the ground. Natsu responded. Naruto felt shivers down his spine despite not knowing Erza very well. However, he never shied away from a challenge. Okay, and the loser has to pay the bill for both of us. Naruto continued. Deal. They walked to Ichiraku's after exchanging handshakes. Happy chuckled at the pair. A strange wind blew through Konoha as they entered. Tsuki, the restaurant's chef and owner, turned to see them both. They gazed into each other's eyes as if they were statues. Neither of them turned to face Tsuki as they said, Old man, give us as much ramen till we pass out. Tsuki smiled. All right, coming right up. Natsu and Naruto took chopsticks and sat down. After 10 minutes, Tsuki's daughter Ayame put both bowls down. Natsu began eating even before his bowl touched the counter. Knocking Erza's cake won't kill me. It's suicide. Naruto came chasing after him. I will not cover the cost of all of this. I am short on funds. Somewhere, a small child said, Pretty lady, can you sing for us? Lucy gave a headshake. The youngster bowed his head. I may not be able to, but I know someone who will. Lucy replied. She took out one of her silver keys. She took a step back and extended her arm to hold the key in front of her while all the kids looked on. Lucy slashed the air diagonally once and said, Open, gate of the lyre. A tiny cloud puffed up, revealing Lyra, a girl with waist-length curls and a dress in shades of pink and light blue. She carried a large lyre and wore a pink bonnet. Lyra questioned, And what do I owe the pleasure, Lady Lucy? Lucy grinned. Can you play a song for these children, please? She requested. Lyra gave a nod. After calling all the kids to her, Lucy sat down, set her lyre down, and began to play. A stool puffed beneath her. Hash 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 hash. Observe, List equals PLJTABPCW4HNH8GSF3KSZV18YH5NUTT 2 versus equals WHGQ98R4FQ, index equals 88. Hash 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 hash. Somewhere, Makarov sat with a bottle of alcohol beneath a blossoming tree. He thought about how, since becoming its master, he had brought the guild up. He turned to see Mavis sitting beside him, smiling and drinking sake from her glass. Makarov remarked, "So Shodai, what do you think will happen now?" Mavis looks up at the sky after opening her eyes. "If I had to guess, we are in for a long ride of ups and downs. Lots of hate will be heading our way, but we will endure, for that is how fairy tale rolls," she replied. Makarov gave a nod. He raised his thumb and index finger to the sky. Alongside Gray, in the hotel, Gray was making a valiant attempt to tear off the panties that were stuck to his waist. "God damn magic glue, once I find them they're dead," he yelled. My beloved, Juvia, 3, was standing there, fidgeting, when Gray turned to face her. "What do you want?" "I'm busy," exclaimed Gray. Juvia had a startled expression. She put her hands on her face after that. With hearts dangling over her head, she remarked, "Oh, Gray, I like it when you scald me." Gray anime came to an end. Juvia stood up, took something out of her pocket, and gave it to Gray. He noticed it was magic glue remover when he turned it in his hand. He looks at Juvia. Juvia turned away from Gray and remarked, I always bring some things like this just in case." Two powerful, bare arms encircled her in an embrace, and she gasped. "Thank you, Juvia." Juvia's body began to evaporate due to her intense redness. She passed out appropriately. Gray gave her a chuckle. As a true gentleman, he escorted her to her room before going back to his to take off the dreaded panties. "Somewhere. Move this man to the next room. Change this lady's sheets, they are full of sweat." There were a lot of discussions taking place in the hospital, but one topic was particularly strange. "Did you hear? A young girl of 12 is healing patients like Tsunade of the Sanin." "What? No way." "Yeah way. Don't believe me, ask a nurse." Such discussions took place between patients and physicians. Wendy dabbed at her perspiration. She was nearly depleted of magic and exhausted. Carla feared she might exert herself too much. Carla fell asleep in Wendy's arms. A nurse discovered them sleeping after a few minutes. Grinning, she led her to a bed, which was cozier than a chair. Returning to the ramen stand, Ichiraku's was where Gajil and Lily were hanging out. They simply had to watch when they learned that Natsu was putting Naruto up against the ultimate punishment in an eating contest. The two fighters were tied. Both finished with 19 bowls, and their large, spherical stomachs were visible. Happy's eyes were whirling. Gajil would relish the fallout from both of them. With a sly smile, Lily inquired, "Want some ramen, Gajil?" Gajil nodded, looking at him. "Hey old man, 2 ramen, one with kiwis in them and the other with chunks of iron." Happy slurped up some fish ramen while laughing. Chuki didn't even raise an eyebrow. He knew what was going on because he was at the arena when he witnessed Gajil consume the dagger. "Okay, done in a few minutes." Lily and Gajil took a seat. Beyond the village, Laxus was patrolling the village walls with his teammates. Laxus didn't want to argue with his grandfather, but he also didn't like it. Bixlow and Freed were as hopeful as ever. Evergreen was. She was grumbling about the abundance of bugs. Laxus let out a sigh as a smile slowly appeared on his face. Local bar. All the men in the bar were drinking with Kana. There's not much to say. In addition to grilling the man who touched her breasts, Lizanna, Levy, Mira, and Elfman. When asked if they could cook for the employees, Levy and the 3 Strauss siblings all agreed. Cutting the food was a man's job, Elfman said, and it was manly. The staff expressed their sincere gratitude to Mira, Levy, and Lizanna for cooking the meals. They made the decision to make pot of food today. Mira had just finished filling the enormous pot with the remaining ingredients and allowed it to simmer. Somewhere, Erza was trying to find a bakery. In order to eat and take some home, she wanted to order some. After being directed to its location, she discovered that it had been totally destroyed. She hurried over to Myra's group and pleaded with her to prepare some cake for her. Erza, who was on the floor and clinging to the edges of Myra's black and white dress, said in a strained voice, "Please, Mira. I need cake." Mira tilted her head and put a finger on it, saying, "If I make one, will you share with the workers?" Erza leapt to his feet and exclaimed, "Yes." Mira turned to Levy and asked her to get the ingredients. "Okay, I'll make a 3-layered strawberry cake." The village is miles away. Gildarts turned to face the village as he strolled silently along the path. He grinned. He resumed his stroll and vanished. At Ichiraku's again. At this point, Naruto and Natsu were completing bowl number 36. As he chewed his iron ramen, Gajil marveled at how they managed to store it. Lily was still enjoying his delicious kiwi ramen. Naruto slammed his face into another bowl as he reached for it, and failed to rise for air. He was unconscious. Thus, Natsu prevailed by default. Erza's cake had to be knocked from her hands and onto the ground, and Naruto now had to pay for 72 ramens. The author can only state that Kyubi will always be among those who cower in front of her. He cannot elaborate on what transpired with Naruto after he did that. Now Naruto lay in a hospital bed. All of his limbs were broken, he had multiple bruises, and a metal rod was taken out of his rear end. His eyes were streaming with tears. "That insane bitch, I will get her back the next time I see her. Hold on, that's not a smart idea. She strikes more forcefully than Sakura." Naruto began to perspire heavily. He dozed off. Within his seal, Kyubi shuddered. "I haven't been this scared since I was created. Next time I'll pump the kit full of my charka and see if she likes having metal rods shoved up her ass." He said this to no one in particular. 2 weeks had passed since the invasion, and most of Konoha had been restored. Even though nobody thought less of Sasuke, they all believed Natsu was lucky. He was furious because he had lost in front of the village. "I love animals, and I don't despise those with mental disabilities, but Sakura was following Sasuke like a retarded puppy. She continued to follow him despite Sasuke's warnings to stop, until he lost his temper and punched her in the stomach, knocking her unconscious. Sakura believed that he was trying to be difficult. A poor, naive fangirl. In order to pay off his debt, Naruto is working part-time at Ichiraku's while taking a break from his ninja career. After Erza removed the metal rod that had been shoved up his ass, he had multiple internal bruises and was unable to move around much. Chuki gave him instructions to sit and make noodles out of the dough in exchange for a complimentary bowl at the end of the day. The Rookie 12's other members were occupied with training. With Fairy Tail, at this point, every member was beginning to pack up everything they owned. Since Natsu had spent all of his money at restaurants, he had finished before the others. Happy was attempting to get to his feet, but his little green bag had grown to be enormous and stuffed full of different types of fish. It was more difficult than it appeared, but Erza was firmly packing her new accessories into her enormous suitcases. She yelled, "Damn it!" as the one she had closed suddenly opened and several objects emerged. Lily had nothing but his little bag of kiwis, while Gajil had a duffel bag full of clothes. Wendy and Lucy both had significant cases. One was filled with their purchased items, and the other was filled with clothing. Carla was quietly drinking tea while seated at a desk. The other members were packing as well. However, since they were departing the very next day, they all left a change of clothes out. Makarov peered out his room's window. The village was blown by a light wind. Makarov grinned. "I'm grateful for my life." That evening, the Shaking Leaf, a nearby tavern, served as the gathering place for all of the Fairy Tail members. With the exception of Wendy, who was underage, they all drank and had fun there. Half of the people there were outdrank by Kana. As her opponent fell to the ground and began to vomit violently, she laughed. Laxus and Fried drank their alcohol in silence. Bixlo was intoxicated, laughing foolishly, and making his infants look up women's skirts like little typhoons. When he attempted to look up Myra's skirt, Elfman's beast arm takeover rendered him unconscious. While her teammate was flattened and snoring like a baby, Evergreen laughed. She lifted her wineglass to her mouth and took a sip. The bartender was being yelled at by Erza for failing to serve strawberry cake. Bam! The bar was cut in half by Erza's gloved hand. "If only that blonde-hair idiot didn't ruin my cake," she yelled. Both Natsu and Gray were fighting while intoxicated, but they were fighting in their underwear, without shirts or pants. Juvia was steaming from her body. She thought it was hot to see her Gray fighting another man while half naked. "I would adore holding Gray nude. Juvia's thoughts drifted into the murky depths of perverseness. Maybe if I get him even more drunk then maybe. When Gray's and Natsu's underwear flew off, leaving Gray wearing his necklace and Natsu his scarf, Lucy and Wendy chuckled and shielded their eyes. Wendy drank juice while Lucy drank vodka. Happy and Carla took a seat beside them. Sitting next to Gajil and Lily, who were so inebriated that they were laughing at a picture of a cow on a milk carton, Levy was reading a book. Levy grinned and rolled her eyes. Since Mira and Lizanna had departed early with Makarov in order to return to the guild, they were not present. Lucy grinned broadly as she glanced at her fellow guild members. As she fainted and fell over Wendy, who caught her, she thought, I love them so much, I would die to protect them. Wendy told Carla and Happy, it seems I'm going to have to use some headache-reducing magic tomorrow. Yes, child, and I think it's time for you to return to the hotel. Happy and I will escort you, Carla replied. Happy and Wendy gave a nod, and the three departed. Happy and Carla cuddled up on either side of Wendy as she got ready for bed and fell asleep right away. The morning after, Wendy heard her guildmates' muffled, pained moans as she awoke. When she opened her eyes, she discovered that she was not on the bed but rather the couch. When she got up and went into the bathroom, she saw a naked Juvia clinging desperately to a naked Gray in the bathtub. They were awakened by Wendy's scream, and Gray was unable to stop staring at the naked woman on his nude body. Seeing this, Juvia drew his face against her breasts. Juvia blushed and said, "How do you like them, my beloved Gray?" Gray yelled, "Get off of me," and pushed her away from him before jumping out of the bathtub and out of the bathroom, leaving Wendy and Juvia behind. Wendy was on the verge of passing out when Juvia got out of the tub, clothing emerging from her body. "I'm sorry you had to see that, Wendy. Are you okay?" Juvia responded. Wendy nodded slowly before changing. She was even more frightened by what she saw when she went inside. Gajil and Levy were both in her bed. Levy was wrapped in the blanket, and Gajil was shirtless. Wendy lost it and began to cry. The idea of someone else doing that in her room next to her was too much for her to bear. When Levy woke up from her sobs, she was wearing a tan nightgown. Levy hurried over to Wendy's side and asked, "Wendy, are you fine?" Wendy pulled Levy into a close embrace. She exclaimed, "Yareui, in my room." Levy glanced around. Indeed. With a quick hug, Levy said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Wendy, I did not realize we stayed in your room last night." Gajil woke up with a splitting headache during all of this, and the screaming and sobbing did not help. He yelled, "Hey, shut up you two," and both of them stopped. Well, Levy did. Wendy questioned, Why here?" Gajil cracked his neck and sat slowly. "Last night Levy helped me to my room, but I barged into your room. I saw you and the cat sleeping, so I moved you to the couch." Wendy nodded, somewhat pleased that he had done so. "But why is Levy in the bed with you?" Levy reddened. "Well, I tried to get him out of the bed, but he grabbed me and pulled me onto the bed, and with him stronger than me, I just fell asleep." Gajil stood up and moved to face Wendy. "Hey, can you help me with this headache, please?" Wendy put her hands on his green glow-emitting head and the headache went away. After expressing gratitude to her, Gajil and Levy departed, with Levy offering another apology. Wendy got up slowly and went to the bed to find her clothes and suitcase. She hurriedly changed into the Transform episode's black, frilly dress. Wendy brushed her teeth and styled her hair before leaving the hotel with her things and heading to the gates. Alongside Natsu. Natsu was so exhausted and heavy when she woke up. There was a mass of blonde on his chest when he opened his eyes. He closed his eyes, then opened them. He screamed, "Lucy, what the hell are you doing?" Now awake, Lucy raised her head. She jumped up in her panties when she saw his face. Seeing this, she shouted, "Hentai," and covered herself before slapping Natsu. After being hurled through a wall, Natsu went back to sleep. Lucy took deep breaths and panted. After calming down, she dressed. She was now dressed in her tube top and miniskirt. Leaving Natsu alone, she secured her key belt, pulled her hair into pigtails, and picked up her bags. Alongside Erza, Erza was searching for the cake shop, which had been rebuilt and was once again open for business, as she strolled through the village while carrying her bags with ease. Erza came in and picked up the cake she had ordered a few days prior. As he counted the money he received from Erza, the store owner said, "Thank you for your patronage." Erza smiled as she thought, "This might keep my fridge full for a week and a half." A certain raven-headed boy accidentally tripped Erza as she was grabbing her luggage cart, causing her to drop and squash all of her cake. Sasuke felt a dark and powerful aura behind him, but he didn't apologize or even care. You shall pay dearly. It ended before it started when he turned and saw a gloved hand made of metal. Once more, the author is unable to describe the events in detail. All he can say is that Sasuke will likely struggle to conceive. Erza picked up the only undamaged cake after leaving Sasuke's body in the middle of the road. After a little while, looking for Sasuke, Sakura decided to investigate the crowd of people she saw as she was walking down the street. She saw that Sasuke had cut marks all over his body, that his limbs were bent in the wrong direction due to compound fractures, that his face was swollen beyond recognition, that his eyes were black and puffy, and that there was a large puddle of blood near his crotch that was slowly leaking out. Sasuke! The banshee screamed, and she picked him up carefully and swiftly, taking him back to the hospital, where she remained. Returning with Natsu. Natsu, you're where? As he walked into Natsu's room and noticed that Natsu's lower half was kicking, Happy inquired. Og, what happened to you, Natsu? As he flew over and dragged Natsu away from the wall, Happy asked. When Natsu was knocked off the wall, he landed on his ass. Natsu, hurry up, with a worried tone, Happy said, we are leaving in a few minutes, and everyone else has already left except for you. Oh no, Natsu threw his scarf around his neck, put on his pants and sandals, and said, okay, I'm hurrying. Happy flew swiftly behind him as he bolted from the building. Right at the gate, Gray, Lucy, and the rest of Natsu's team had all gone out without them, which was okay, but they were all patiently waiting for the last member. Anyway, where is that pyro? Did Gray ask? Lucy looked guilty but said, I did send him through a wall, so Happy might be having trouble pulling him out. Erza listened and ate her cake without saying a word. She was still furious with Sasuke, but she had directed most of her rage toward him, so it was only mild rage. Natsu rushed to the gate at that precise moment, shirtless, carrying his regular backpack on his back with Happy on one side. Natsu was knocked back and landed on his ass when Erza extended her arm and clotheslined him. Erza, what the devil? He inquired. Mess with me and I end you, was the expression Erza gave him. With a big smile on his face, Natsu said, okay, let's leave, after swallowing and getting back up. Hold on. When they all turned around, they saw Naruto running toward them in an odd manner and stopping in front of them, gasping. Are you really going to leave? He inquired. Yes, we are heading back home. What's the matter with that? Natsu inquired. Naruto stated, we won't see each other again, that's why. Erza took a step forward and gave Naruto a head pat. We may be apart, but we will always be with you. With her thumb and index finger outstretched, she turned and began to walk away with her cart. As they left, everyone else followed suit. Don't worry, once we become friends with Fairy Tail, we will always return for a visit, Natsu said, turning his head back. You can rely on it. That is a pledge. Naruto nodded and yelled at their backing backs, and when you do come back, I'll be strong enough to take you all on. Unbeknownst to Naruto, they all grinned and said, and I look forward to that day, Naruto. With a joyful shout, all right, let's return to Fairy Tail, Natsu stepped ahead of everyone.